How do they make this thing stand up?
I'll put an office in Newville and I won't be there.
Hello, everybody. We're going to call the meeting to order this evening. Today is January 9th. It is 6:31. I would ask that Kalina Graham please do a roll call.
Mike Maloney?
Here.
Dave Burton?
Here.
Mike Dolick here?
Here.
David Bounds?
Here?
Charlie Sinclair?
Here.
Gail Denio? Here. Jay Tiverton?
Yeah.
And acting chair Edwin Bonis.
I'm here. Also in attendance is Dean Trevathan and Brandy Laughlin. Seems like everybody's here tonight. I guess we'd first move to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have an extension that has been continued till February 6th at the applicant's request. We need a motion?
Yes, please.
So I need a motion to continue that.
Make a motion to continue that until February 6th.
Get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So I guess we're going to move right on to a continued public hearing for the Landley Cove development. So I would ask tonight that, you know, one of my little things is, please, if you're going to speak, please state your name, because I just keep forgetting who is who. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would do that tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to make a few comments before we started this hearing.
All righty.
I was present at the last hearing. It was contentious in many ways, to say the least. I regret that. That should not be the way that this board handles and deals with applications. It is my, and I think I said this last time, it is my desire to keep this process moving forward slowly, fairly, openly, and give everybody an opportunity to be fairly heard. And I just wanted to put that on the record because I left the last meeting with a sour taste in my mouth.
William Philpott Jr., Mr. Chairman, for the applicant. David, I appreciate your remarks.
Pardon, I didn't hear you.
I appreciate your remarks.
Thank you.
I suppose coming from me, that ought to be great, right, David?
It's spectacular.
There you go. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Bill. How do you make this stand up? I can't work this thing.
We're going to move right ahead. John?
Yep.
Oh, hang on one moment, John.
What's that?
Do you want to fix this tablet so it stands up?
I did a duplicate on mine. HDMI.
I think it's just the back.
Get him some duct tape.
Would like it to stand up.
Thank you.
See, you know better.
It's Apple.
Okay, now get me to the agendas.
I thought you said take his tablet. I said, what do you do wrong?
One thing and the other. Pick that off of you.
moved into the 21st century.
Change it on you again anyway.
Please excuse our delays this evening.
No, sorry.
Technical difficulties. We don't have one. Do we really?
Go to screen.
Take away his award.
Oh, that's for later.
We still hooked up to ye olde projector?
Okay, you're taking too long, that's it.
We might have to go old school with the projector, we'll see.
Try and plug it in one more time now.
Okay.
Thought about it.
Okay, hold on here. Computer only to start with.
How's your 21st century? You see?
Yeah.
The efficiency of technology.
Anything?
And they all got awards at the
Should be
Christmas party.
like extending.
Being so
did?
successful. This isn't looking good.
I missed that again.
Okay.
Got another computer we can use. That works. If you don't mind putting on a flash drive, you guys
Yeah.
don't mind waiting.
I have plenty of flash drives in my backpack.
Like that, that we don't need it. Is there anything we can talk about? Necessarily have it on the screen.
Okay, good point. Good.
We're trying to think if there's a couple things we can just go over that we don't need to have up in front of anybody.
As a result of the last meeting, and I'll direct my attention to you again, David, there was discussion about access through Paugus Woods. Okay. Two issues were raised, as I remember. Of course, there was no recording of that. Whether or not the residents of Paugus Woods had been notified of the reservation. The applicant claims a reservation. And there was also discussion about the road through the system as a I'll call it a workable solution. 2 points, as I recall. Okay?
I'm sorry, hang on one second. I'm sorry, sir. What was that?
I'm sorry, could they switch places so that the microphone was in front of him?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Puplant.
Yes. So, on the issue of constructive and actual knowledge of the residents of Paugus Woods, I had Manchester research what was done, and I got a hold of the public offering statement, which is required for a registered project in the state of New Hampshire. Registration for a project like Paugus Wood is required to be registered through the Consumer Protection Division with oversight by the Attorney General's office. the public offering statement that was handed to all the residents, prospective buyers of Paugus Woods, is here. I've taken excerpts from the public offering statement to show that there was actual notice in the public offering statement of the rights reserved through Paugus Wood for the Langley project, and the actual recording information. So we have here actual and constructive notice to the residents, and that was one of the key issues that you raised, David, as I recall. Do I have that again right?
Yes, you do.
Okay, and I'm prepared to hand out the information, the excerpt I've taken from the public offering statement, which is this whole document combined, and I'll be glad to share the totality of that document with you if you'd like. This is,
You got enough for everybody?
yeah, I think I do. That's from the public offering statement, the bottom page. And this is from the declaration, which it references, two separate documents.
Got enough there?
And John, so we don't have downtime, John has minutes from prior meetings with regard to the past board's reaction to going through and using the two projects, joining them
Okay.
from a perspective of traffic control. Okay? Getting someplace?
Yeah, what page is that, sir?
What page of the public offering statement?
Yes.
The first page I'll be referring to, let me show you so we get on the same page, public offering statement. Page 4, which is required to be handed to every prospective buyer of a condominium project of this size. The area discussion, it's topically, it's surrounding area. And as you can see, the clearance reserves the right to grant access and utility easements through the common area or through individual unconveyed lots within the subdivision from the existing road system to abutting lots, parenthetically, Langley Cove, okay? And as part of the process, each prospective buyer must sign and acknowledge a receipt of a public offering statement as part of, in order to have a binding agreement. Now, the public offering statement, which I refer to, then refers to, for further clarification, section 3.4.6, which is that second page of the declaration, which is on page 5 of 40. And of course, the declaration was ultimately recorded in the Registry of Deeds. Now, when the developer purchased Paugus Woods, there were no outconveyances, there were no owners. So this document that I'm referring to became the controlling document. And again, not to belabor it, any prospective buyer in Paugus Wood get not only constructive notice through the Registry of Deeds, that was discussed the other night, but they actually got actual notice because the registration process requires that. Now, when you look at 3.4.6 of page 5 of the 40-page declaration recorded in the Registry of Deeds, there's a reiteration of these reserved rights and the scope of them. So I think we can lay to rest that residents of Paugus Woods did not get notification of what was going to take place with these reservation of rights.
May I ask a gentle question?
Yes, you may.
In the declaration or page 5 of 40,
Yes,
you refer to 553 Weirs Boulevard, LLC, which I understand it today. Excuse me?
Can you lean forward to the microphone?
you're committing the
do that
same
all the time.
sin as I'm doing.
Yeah. In the declaration, the 3.46 paragraph, you
Yes.
refer to 553 Weirs Boulevard, LLC, referenced in the Belknap County Registry of Deeds, et cetera. And in the public offering statement, you make specific reference to Langley Cove. Can you tell me why there was a difference in the language? I mean, I understand that 553 Weirs Boulevard today is Langley Cove, but I'm not sure that, and I'm
it's
just
the-
raising this issue,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that people would understand that 553 Weirs Boulevard was in fact Langley Cove, and that's the only question I'm raising, and I'm not expecting a resolution of it tonight.
Yeah. This is not my product. I just got it pulled up from archives.
Okay.
And not to say that if it were my product, it would be perfect. I'm not suggesting that, David.
Well,
But the 553 Weirs Boulevard LLC is the developing arm for Langley Cove, of course.
I understand that. I'm
And-
not
and-
sure that people purchasing property or houses would understand that. That's my only question. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe it's plain from other documents, maybe it isn't, so.
Yeah,
I've got two pieces of paper for me. I got one question, and I'm not expecting a resolution to that tonight.
Yeah. I can only say, in quick response, that the disclosure that required underwriting with the Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection Division, signed off on it. So apparently, again, I wasn't there, they were satisfied that it was a sufficient disclosure, because that's what that process is.
Okay? I'm listening.
Okay? So that's the only retort I can have at this point in time.
Just one quick question on the paragraph in the page 4 of 7.
Page, from the actual public
The second-
disclosure statement, yep.
The second paragraph, are all these homes that are on these lots leased? They don't own the land?
That's correct.
Condo development.
They own the homes, but not the.
They don't own the land?
That's correct.
Oh. So they're not really tied to the land, they're just leasing that land?
The condo.
Tenants.
Technically, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
We're tied to the development, though.
Yes. If I could jump in with a couple things. It was at the last meeting, it was said that when Paugus Woods was going through the approval process, that it was never brought up that it was gonna go through Langley Cove, like that the secondary access might be through Langley Cove. And I have the minutes of the TRC meeting from
Maybe you want to take your pencil out there,
from
David.
2005, before it was ever approved.
Write some notes down.
And it's saying, Shanna Haley's Burt had a conversation with Walter Mitchell regarding this and the Langley Cove project about combining the entrances. He recommended permitting phase 1 and addressing phase 2 at another time. Jen McCourt, who was the engineer for Paugus Woods, it said she had a conversation with Roki at Holden Engineering, that's how long I've been on this project, to discuss the two entrances. And then at the actual minutes of the March 7th, 2005 Planning Board meeting, it is discussed during that meeting, and at the end, Shanna says, she said the goal is not to bring the second access through the wetlands area, the way it did get approved, but through the abutting property, which was Langley Cove. And this was 2005, the planning board was considering it, so there was some discussion of whether it had been done behind your back, like Brady Sullivan came in the back and bought the property just for that purpose. But in 2005, when it was originally being permitted, that was the plan. And that was
the
presented
Pogus
to.
Woods. That was the Pogus Woods
Yep,
application.
that was the Pogus Woods application that that their secondary access wanted to go through Langley Cove.
Okay.
And then, further, on, February 2nd, 2010, right after Pogus Woods had been purchased by Brady Sullivan, we came back to the planning board as a design review for Langley Cove to give you guys update of where we were at. And, we disclosed at that point to the planning board, before anybody had ever bought a house in Pogus, that we owned both projects and that we were combining the entrances. And towards the end of the minutes of that meeting, it says, Warren Hutchins said, "The road through Pogus Woods is a tremendous improvement." That was the direction we were getting from the planning board in 2005.
And you're saying
2010.
that this occurred before,
Before anybody had a part.
before anybody bought a thing?
Yep. Yep.
So I
Please.
have a question. When you say, I just want to be clear, two entrances, what, two entrances?
Secondary accesses for both properties.
Okay, so not two entrances at the top?
Nope.
An entrance down the bottom, an entrance at the top?
Pogus Woods needed 2 points of access, and Langley Cove needed 2 points of access. And even when Norris Viviers was originally doing the project in 2005, we were trying to combine entrances. This was back when Shane had first purchased Langley Cove, or the parcel of land, and they were trying to work out an agreement on entrances, that
So-
they were always gonna be together if possible.
Okay, so when you had this scope in mind, was it the same scope that we have today with
Yep.
this many units down below?
Actually, Langley Cove was 341 units at
Yeah.
that point,
Okay,
so it's 291 now.
all right.
Based on what we had gone through a reduction process in 2008 with the planning board. But Pogus Woods was always 90 units. So there was just, it was thrown out there that everything was kind of backdoor, and the planning board had never seen anything and never had any input on it, but that's definitely not the case. So I just want to make sure everybody knew that.
Yep. I'll keep you going on this presentation, John.
Okay?
Well, I just want to make a comment. I see some individuals raising their hands in the back, and you'll have an opportunity to comment on this, but the procedure we should be going through, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, is to let the applicant make their
Present
application, take the input from the public, and move in that procedure,
Yep.
so.
And what we're doing is,
Just relax.
We'll get there.
Okay.
okay. One thing that we have been trying to work with the abutters over the course of the last month, and I recently, as of yesterday, had a good conversation with, I'm sorry, his first name is? Paul. We had a good conversation. I've actually gone through kind of a TRC and design process for the road. I've talked to DPW about it. And what we have is, I actually did a road profile and design for the bypass road that we have so that the 3 internal abutters will have access during construction. And we're gonna upgrade the road basically to a 24-foot wide road. It's utilizing existing roads almost entirely, except for one small stretch where we connect 2 roads. Like basically, the roads that were already there for the trailer park, we're reusing, and we're just widening and,
Is this different than what you showed us last time?
yes, this is way more
So-
detailed.
So this is a different design.
No, it's the same path as what we had come up with, but it's the actual design of the road at this point.
Okay, so it's a different design than what I looked at last time.
What you had looked at before was just a path that we were gonna try to follow. That
Okay.
was it. There was no design at all before. And this is the design plan with profiles and everything else of how everything's gonna work.
Oh, I must be old and senile, because I thought I looked at something like that the last time you were here.
No, you did, but all it was, instead of a road design with contours, all it was a green.
I'm just not understanding the
Yep,
language.
all it was saying, this is the direction we wanna go, but it wasn't designed at that point.
Okay,
So since then, we've actually submitted it to DPW, I've had meetings with them, I've made revisions, and, I've sent it to the abutters, and we've discussed it a little bit. And they understand kind of how things go, how ththings are gonna go through there, and they know where the old roads are from the old, trailer park, so they kinda know how everything lays out. The butter up in the center, actually, basically, their driveway is exactly the same as what it is right now. Until the first phase road gets built right up to their point, at such time, we'll just switch them over onto the new road. The other concern was, see if I can zoom this, but, there was a underground detention pond, or underground detention chamber in between the houses that was close to the foundation and wells, and we're talking about blasting. What you're seeing here, I can't zoom on this computer, but what we've done is redesign that. We moved the underground detention. It's now out over, all the way over by Shelby Court. It's in a fill area. There's no blasting. We're gonna have to fill to get to the bottom of where it's at this point. So the blasting issue has been resolved also.
All right.
Well, no blasting, that's a good thing.
Yep. So those are,
You can make it bigger too if you wanna use, you have to
No,
use
no
the
blasting
mouse.
in that one area.
yeah,
You have to use the mouse.
yeah, there's no mouse.
Blasting in that
Oh,
one.
yeah,
that
okay.
works, right?
There we
There'll
go,
be other
okay.
blasting.
I'm not used to computer. Okay, here. Maybe. Too far?
You can grab that little block too. So yeah, there you go.
Let's see what you did.
Okay,
man,
so
look at
right
that.
there,
There you go.
it was all the way out in between the two houses, and now we pulled it back over to Shelby Court, and it's in a fill area, so.
Okay.
So we resolved that issue as well. Does
John-
anybody have any questions about?
John, what kind of feedback did you get from the neighbors when you spoke to them about the new road design and?
All I talked to is Paul, and
Okay.
from our conversation, I think we had a pretty good conversation, that
Okay.
that they at least understood what we were doing, and they know the roads that we're talking about, and
right.
how it's all gonna connect, and he was happy with, I think happy with what I had done with that, and definitely happy with getting the underground detention out of the way, so.
What was the feedback from DPW in regards to the road?
DPW was fine with it. They basically, fire and DPW said if the abutters are okay with it, after you discuss it with them, that they're fine with it, so. And DPW had put the requirement that we make a 24-foot wide road and have it like gravelled and have it ready to go for the abutters before we start, so.
Okay.
That was their input, and that's why I actually did a full design of it this time, rather than just, kind of sketching the existing roads we were gonna try to use.
Okay.
So you only talked to one abutter,
I talked to one abutter, yeah.
not the other two?
No, I just actually got the contact with him on Friday last week. I had the design plan done, and, that's the only one I've talked to. From what I understand, he's representing one of the other ones, so by way of talking to him, I talked to two, but the only one we haven't talked to is, the ones out in the middle. And, their access basically is exactly the same as it is today on a wider road.
Okay.
Bless you.
Keep moving along.
Any other questions on this part of it? What the next step is to go into the traffic analysis, that we said that we were gonna take a look at and, give you a more thorough presentation on this week. Yep, I can ask Dirk to come up and get to your slides. There's your start.
Try to do a little.
I think you can just, I could on mine. Just have to arrow down.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Jeffrey Dirk with Vanessa and Associates, so we're the traffic engineers on the project. I've got a few slides just to go.
That mic a little closer.
Sure. I've got a few slides to go through with you, and I'll go through them fairly quickly and happy to answer any questions you might have. So I think at the last hearing, we had gone through a summary of all of the traffic analysis that had been done for the project. There's been several traffic studies that were done, and I think kind of what we heard as feedback from the board was that this information was dated, and I think we'd agreed that that was in fact the case. So what we've done since the last hearing, we worked with Brandy and have updated all of the traffic analyses for the project. We essentially have gone back to the original study that was done in 2005. There were several updates done since that time. And what we did was look at all of that information and then refreshed it all, essentially made sure that we were including recent projects that the city has approved. Some of them are under construction or at least partially complete, and some of them have yet to start construction. So we obtained a list from the planning department of each of those projects, updated all of the traffic analyses, and we provided an analysis of kind of conditions today if the project was built. So we're looking at the year 2018 in summer months, so in August, with and without the project. And then the state requires we also look at a 10-year planning horizon, so we looked at the year 2028 as well to see what the differences are. And looking at the historic traffic counts that have been done in the area that DOT has, traffic volumes along Weirs Boulevard really haven't changed much. The growth rate between the original traffic study and the last traffic counts that were done in 2007 and current conditions, traffic volumes have generally increased depending on where you are along the corridor. They are somewhere between just shy of 1% and upwards of about 1.6%. So it's grown historically over the past several years, averaging about 1.5% growth since 2007, again, when the original traffic analyses were done for the project. And when we looked at White Oaks Road, the DOT actually has traffic counts on White Oaks Road as well. There's actually been a decrease in traffic volumes on that roadway, somewhere around about just below actually 10%, or a little over 10% on that roadway. So a decline on White Oaks Road, but an increase along Weirs Boulevard. And that's probably what you've kind of experienced as you've been driving around through the community. So I think what the substance of that review was is that the original traffic study used a 2% growth rate. So what it basically says is all of the analyses that have been done for this project and that the board has reviewed and that you've had subsequently peer reviewed are consistent with what has actually been happening on the corridor. So all of the information, and in fact, the mitigation, all of the development of the site access design and the off-site improvements that are planned as a part of the project are consistent with what has actually been happening on the roadway itself. So when we were brought on board to look at the project, there was a specific task that we were asked to look at, and this was one of the outstanding items that the planning department and DPW had with the project. The original traffic analysis that was done for the project assumed that 90% of the traffic would be oriented towards Weirs Boulevard and that 10% would be using White Oaks Road. And you heard John and our attorney talk about the importance of this connection between Paugus Woods and this project. And essentially that connection was to better disperse the traffic, but also when we understand that the traffic volumes on Weirs Boulevard are very high during the summer months, it would give the opportunity for traffic to kind of filter out the back to White Oaks Road. So what we're asked to look at was, instead of having 90% of the traffic using Weirs Boulevard and only 10% coming out to White Oaks Road, there was a desire to have an analysis done of shifting more of a split with 60% using Weirs Boulevard and then 40% coming out White Oaks Road. And in particular, looking at what the impacts would be down at the White Oaks Road, Weirs Boulevard, Lake Street intersection. What the DPW wanted to look at is the need for improvements at that location, given the fact that we know that the summer months coming down that hill and into that intersection, there's excessive delay. It's a failing condition. There's long queues that happen. So there was a desire to look at what would happen if more traffic from this development and from Paugus Woods filtered out that way, came down to that intersection, and what some improvements may look like at that intersection. So we've performed that analysis, the updated analysis at that location, and confirmed the original findings of the study, which were basically to look at specific improvements to improve the channelization of that intersection. Essentially, what we're looking at doing at that location, and has been reviewed by DPW, is providing separate turn lanes down at the intersection. So as you're coming down the hill to the intersection, there'd be a right turn lane and a left turn lane, improving the channelization because there's a large skew as you come into that intersection. So with some pavement markings at that location, it would provide better definition, but also that separate turning lanes so that anyone wanted to make a right-hand turn at the intersection wouldn't be backed up by the vehicles wanting to make a left at the location.
Just before we move on from there, you come down that road now, you're not being impeded by somebody making a right turn.
Mm-hmm.
You just go around them. So when you talk about two separate lanes, is it gonna be a physical separation, or are we just talking about paint?
It's going to be painted pavement markings on the ground.
Right, so if you're making a left turn, you almost have to get over as far as if you were making a right turn.
Correct, the
So you
swing,
can- So you can
yes.
see what's
Right,
coming down.
right.
What's going south. So,
And so the pavement markings are actually, what it's doing is, it does physically do that to improve the sight lines, but the other function of the pavement markings is it's a wide open intersection, it's kind of a free-for-all. And so that's contributing to some of the motor vehicle crashes that are happening at the location there. So because of the fact that you don't have a lot of definition to the width of White Oaks Road as you come down, the pavement markings provide better definition to get vehicles in proper positioning, so that if someone is coming on Lake Street and making the right-hand turn, it's more or less providing proper positioning of each of the vehicles as they come down to the intersection, and a little bit more room so that vehicle making the right-hand turn can swing. So it's not just a matter of sorting out the traffic, it's also providing better definition of the intersection to try to reduce some of the crashes that are happening there.
you mentioned crashes. Do you have some sort of records of how many motor vehicle accidents
We
have
do,
hit that intersection?
we do, yes. The police department provide us that information.
Do you have any numbers there in front of you?
I can go look it up for you if you want to wait.
You can tell me later.
Yes.
I'm just
They
curious
provide-
because I've not seen many there, so I was just curious.
Yeah, so what we also did with the crash data, I mean, there's not a large number of crashes, but what the reason that the data was provided was for two things. It was for us to first to look at to see if the number of crashes that were happening there and the type of crashes justified providing a traffic signal, which they did not. The volume and the volume of traffic and the number of crashes do not justify the need for a traffic signal.
Really happy to hear that.
Yeah. The other part of it was to look at these specific improvements, to see what type of crashes were happening, where were they happening at the intersection, and then whether channelization or some other type of improvement would address the type of crashes as well. So it was basically two functions.
Thank you.
The other thing that the updated analysis allowed us to do is there was some question about the delays on the driveway. As you might remember, as we looked at the driveway design, what's planned and what's been worked out with DPW is, as you're heading southbound on Weirs Boulevard, there'll be a left turn lane to come into the project site. So anyone that's traveling south that wants to turn left is going to have a separate turn lane. So if you want to continue past the site, there's no traffic relating to this project that's going to block your ability to continue southbound. Exiting the project, we're providing separate left and right turn lanes. And similar to what we were just talking about on White Oaks Road, the purpose of that is to store the queues exiting the project site. So one of the things with the updated analysis that we've done is to make sure that as vehicles stack trying to exit the site, that they don't impede the ability of vehicles to be able to turn and enter the project. So the updated analysis has confirmed that if we have either 90% of the traffic coming out that entrance and trying to get to Weirs Boulevard, or 60%, and some additional traffic coming from Paugus Woods and trying to exit, that providing separate left and right turn lanes, and with those turn lanes providing a minimum of 50 feet of storage, that the queue can be stored without blocking the ability of vehicles to enter the site. So the updated analysis has confirmed that. So the improvements that are planned consist of the improvements that I just mentioned at the access to the projects, where we're providing the left turn lane heading southbound on Weirs Boulevard, continuing with one lane in each direction for through traffic heading on Weirs Boulevard, both northbound and southbound. DPW has also asked us to make sure that we have a sufficient room for bike lanes in both directions, so we'll be providing that. And then along the project side of Weirs Boulevard, we'll be providing a sidewalk as well.
So, is this an updated traffic study?
The analysis has been updated, but the improvements and everything are exactly the same. We've confirmed the fact that everything that's been provided to the board, nothing has changed relative to.
So this isn't a different document?
It is not.
You're just doing a review of what you looked at
And updated it.
and updated it and compared it to the document you've
Exactly.
already presented.
So all of the information you have in your files remains valid for the project. I would say the only new piece of information is the last bullet point I have on the slide here. One of the things, because of this connection to Paugus Woods, there's some desire to provide some traffic calming. So to slow some of the traffic that is going through this project into Paugus Woods, as well as in the opposite direction. So one of the things that we were asked to look at was providing either two-way or all-way stop sign control at the intersection of Siesta Lane with Palmetto Lane, essentially it's the first intersection the four-way intersection that connects the two projects. So providing the stop control there would slow down the traffic as it's basically progressing between the two communities. So we've committing to implementing that as a part of the project.
So I just want to go back. So DPW has asked you, we're going to do a sidewalk.
Yes,
We're going to do a bike lane,
correct. Both sides,
both sides.
Both
of the
sides.
road, of Weirs Boulevard.
correct.
And then we're going to have.
A left turn lane and two through
left
lanes.
Lane turn and then 2 lanes of traffic. So where's all that land coming from? I mean, it's pretty tight up there now. Is that going to be pushed over onto your property?
It's,
It fits. There's actually when you come around the corner there,
Yeah.
the sewer pump station is right there.
Yeah.
And there was an old layout to Weirs Boulevard. It's
Okay.
like 150 feet wide.
Right there.
Yeah, it works out good. And like where we don't have a lot of room is where we're starting to taper up into ours. Like when we taper up into our turn lanes, that's when we get into that area. And when we come down the other side to the Tiltons, where it starts narrowing down again, all the turn lanes and everything have tapered back down again.
So that
it
would
all
be up
fits.
towards the Christmas Island, towards the Snake House?
Yes.
and
Yep.
That's where it narrows back down?
That's where it narrows back down again. Yep.
And will the bike lanes go
Yep.
further up?
We've gone through, we've done cross sections with
Wait,
DPW.
wait, wait, wait,
We've-
wait a minute.
Oh, go ahead.
The bike lanes will only be on the part of Weirs Boulevard that they're improving,
And then they disappear.
and then they disappear. And the idea is that at some point in time, they get connected together with other future developments, or some initiative by the city to provide bike lanes the entire length.
Which would mean widening the road.
Oh, absolutely.
something.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
We had the same reaction, but they assured us that they're gonna take care of it. As long as we take care of ours, they'll take care of the rest. So we're providing everything you guys want. Everything they want.
I just see mass confusion there, but.
Yep.
With the
I'm
bike
not-
lanes, being there and then disappearing.
Yep. It's like what you see along the way now, like the Evergreens has a little chunk of sidewalk, the
The
new
sidewalk is one thing, I get the sidewalk.
Yep,
But if I'm on a bicycle and
on both sides.
on both sides, and all of a sudden I got this nice, it's mine, and then it disappears.
I know.
So,
To be fair, a lot of people ride their bikes down Weirs Boulevard with nothing.
and I'm
So
aware of that,
it's
and.
For a
and-
section, they'll
and-
be protected.
Yeah, I know, and I
Yep.
just, and it's a horrible roll of the dice when they ride their bicycles, especially right up against the guardrails, because there's absolutely no room for error. But, okay, I just wanted to verify that, thank you.
And, go ahead.
nope, that's all I have.
One of, in addition to what Jeff had said, installing the two-way and stop signs on Palmetto and Siesta Lane, there's a condition that's been put on the plan that we basically upgrade, top coat, do everything straight through out to White Oaks Road. Like when we put our intersection in, or put our project in, that at a minimum, regardless of whatever else happens with Pogus Woods, that stretch of road needs to be basically brand new.
All of the road up there, or just one part?
What gets us from our entrance out to White Oaks Road, the path that gets us out to White Oaks Road.
In what phase is that gonna be done?
That would be in phase 2 of Langley. Phase 2 makes the connection.
So they're not gonna be able to use that excess until phase 2 is completed.
Phase 2 would have to be completed
Yeah.
So they're
before,
only gonna have one entrance and one exit in phase 1.
yeah, there's only 8 houses in phase 1. Yeah. And phase 2 only gets you up to 40 total houses. So that was a condition that was put on the, in part of the TRC process, so.
Well, as long as we're talking about it now, I'll raise the issue, and I don't know if you're prepared to answer it or not. But one of the concerns that I had and that I heard was the conditions of the roads in Pogus Woods and all of that. So I'm looking to find out how we're going to address all of that issue during the course of the development of this project. Does everybody understand me?
Oh, yeah.
I do, yeah.
Okay. I'm not expecting a
No,
reply.
the only answer I can give you right now is basically what I just said. No matter what, the section from Langley Cove straight through out to White Oaks Road will be basically brand new.
Okay. All right.
And will that major repair or hot topping, will that create a better flow of the overflows of the drainage that's occurring, that we heard the last?
No, that had nothing to do with the Pogus project. That was something up off of White Oaks Road, completely separate from from either project. White Oaks, there, from what I understand, I mean, I basically just heard about it, but there was some backup of water on White Oaks Road, and the way that DPW chose to, like, release the water was down into the Langley Brook somehow, and that's what caused it basically was like a wall of water that went down and hit the Beaver Dam, overtopped it even further because it was already a whole bunch of water against it from the storm. And it was the combination of the storm and the release of water by DPW that breached the Beaver Dam.
Is that accurate? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's basically some of the things that we've been doing since the last meeting. One of the things that we discussed at TRC was trying to get into the steep slopes and wetlands, and Dean indicated that he wanted to do a little bit of presentation on that. On how, like, going through, do you want me to go through criteria, or do you want me to, like, we got somehow get through the CUP process?
Right, yes, you do.
We've gone through, the CUP process for steep slopes and wetlands has been probably the most significant part of it. I mean, we have third-party reviews that have been going on for years, and working with staff, trying to basically knock off every single criteria on the list, the 21-item list that you guys have for steep slopes. And I don't believe anyone else has ever actually gotten a steep slope CUP through the planning board since it's been implemented in 2011. So a bunch of our third-party reviews have been along those lines. We've done geotechnical studies, we've done borings, we've done groundwater monitoring, we've done test pit upon test pit, we've done tree surveys. At this point, what we have from both planning and planning's third-party engineer that they had hired to review everything is that we have met every criteria of the steep slope CUP and also the wetland CUP criteria. So, and Dean can agree or disagree with that, but I think it's agree.
No, they meet the steep slope requirements. They have done it with considerable engineering, retaining walls, grading, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that we will be looking for when we get to final approval, and one of the conditions of approval will be when they start construction of things like retaining walls and the building pads for the units that will require fill, that we're going to have an inspector on site to make sure that everything is constructed properly, that the compaction of all the materials are done properly, and the proper waiting times are adhered to, et cetera, et cetera. It's certainly, from an engineering standpoint, a very doable thing, but it's not a slam dunk, so it does require proper oversight.
Okay. Because this is, I think we can all agree that the development of this piece of land requires some really good engineering to deal with the steep slopes that you're left with in order to get the number of units that you want to get onto this piece of property. So I'm going to be very careful about that. I'm happy to hear that you've met the criteria. You get the gold star for being the first one to meet the criteria. Well, how about that? And so I'm going to be very careful about that, and I'm going to be looking at that very carefully. So, just to let you know.
Yep. And part of what Dean was saying is both DPW, fire, everybody has basically said that we're going to have a full-time inspector on site for this whole project. I mean, the city is going to make sure that somebody that they hire is on site every day, all the time on this project. So, That's part of what we've been doing for conditions, to make sure that this does go the way it's supposed to. And like I said, the engineering has been going on for years. It's been being reviewed for years. I mean, you wouldn't believe the number of revisions that have been made. I mean, it's been a long process. And what you're seeing in front of you right now is the result of all of that.
Yeah, and the reason I'm being careful and the reason that I appreciate the efforts that you're doing and that the planning department is doing, because if it's not done right and something happens, it's disaster for a lot of people. So,
Yep.
So just to be clear, the inspector will be hired by the city, but paid for by Brady Sullivan.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
One quick question in regards to, both projects are gonna be linked together by these roads. Is the project of Langley Cove, the documents like, the attorney had presented for August Woods, is that gonna be similar? Are those lease properties, or are those homeowners that are gonna live there?
In Langley Cove?
Yes.
Langley Cove's gonna be a condominium project where the ownership of the units and the land are all common to the condo association.
And they,
It'll be different than what Pogus Woods is.
and they will maintain the roads?
Yes, it's all private roads, yes. Yep.
So is Pogus Woods not condominiums?
It's not a
It's
condominium.
not a okay.
Pogus Woods, when it was originally permitted by the city, it was the manufactured housing cluster,
Okay.
which meant it was always gonna be a land lease. And it was gonna be, like basically a trailer park,
Yeah.
is what it was permitted as originally.
Okay.
Nice, but
Yep.
basically that's what it was permitted under.
And do they maintain that property? Or does the city plow that and maintain that roads?
Association,
Okay,
yes.
I'll help him, that's all.
Yep. That's fine.
yep.
Is that all you got for us?
That gets us through most of the stuff. I mean, we did in, what was it, October, we did a pretty thorough overview of the entire project. We got kind of hung up in December a little bit on the traffic, but I think we made it through the traffic issues a little bit better tonight. We've touched on the CUP stuff. Architecture has been third-party reviewed. There's some conditions that we've made improvements on architecture over the years, and then there's some conditions of approval that we've been working on with Brandy for that also. But that's essentially the project. It's the culmination of everything we've been doing since 2005.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, I still think that those predictions of 60%, 40%, in the summertime, especially on weekends or during events, whether it's Motorcycle Week or 4th of July, very optimistic that you're gonna have.
Those were the numbers that we were directed to try to use,
Yeah,
like to try to split it up.
Right.
It wasn't something that we picked out or that we're saying that.
Well, whoever picked them out,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think that's very optimistic. I think, being, a person that likes to keep moving, like most people do, that you're gonna have a lot of that traffic go right up through Pogus Woods. I'm not saying turning into it, but I'm saying trying to exit it. There are people that take White Oaks Road now, to avoid sometimes the traffic on this boulevard. And we haven't mentioned the exit or the entrance to White Oaks Road down by, was that 11B, I think?
Endicott
11C, yeah, Endicott Street, where the
The old surf coaster is.
surf coaster is. That intersection hasn't been mentioned at all, and I'm thinking you're gonna pick up traffic on that entrance too. So has there been any thought with your traffic control or study about that intersection?
Both directions, horrendous.
Yes, Jeff,
So the developer, one of the mitigation items is a contribution towards improvements at that intersection. Believe it was somewhere close to about $30,000.
Which intersection?
it was either going to be, so it could be used either at Weirs Boulevard or at Route 111B intersection, but that's already had some improvements done. Some of that money could be used at the White Oaks Road intersection with the 111B, with 11B. It's a $30,000 contribution that's being put towards essentially improvements along that corridor.
Okay, well, I understand that, that's great, but in your study,
Correct, yes.
did you study that intersection?
We did not.
You did not?
Nope.
Well, I look to the planning department and just would say that I think that's something that somebody should be looking at, because there's no doubt that traffic is, when it leaves, goes through Poggett's Woods, it's gonna either, not necessarily all go right towards Laconia. How much of it's gonna go the other way? It's just a point, because that's an intersection that always bears watching too.
So when we did the revised analysis for the project, we estimated how much traffic would go in that direction based on the 60-40 split. It was also done with the 90-10 split, obviously with 5% of the traffic. With the 90-10 split, it was assumed 5% would travel north on White Oaks Road, 5% would travel south. The 60-40 split puts more of the traffic toward the north, essentially. And what that equates to for the project is during the peak hour, it's about 20 trips over the course of an hour. That's the amount of traffic that's projected to go in that direction. So even with that level, that volume of traffic, the original analysis and the new analysis would say that that volume of traffic going up in that direction over the course of an hour, if it's bad, it's going to stay bad, but the impacts relating to the project are not going to be significant. The number of vehicles that queue up at that location before and after the project, it would increase by about 1 or 2 vehicles tops.
It's hard for me to understand, or not to understand, to imagine, because I know you've got the number of houses and how many guests they may or may not have. It's just hard for me to imagine what the residents in Poggett's Woods will be looking at when things get tough down Weirs Boulevard and going north. You know, and that's may not even be any of my business being on this board. But nonetheless, it does come to my mind, and just a few times I drove through Poggett's Woods since our last meeting here, I tried to imagine that. And, you know, I don't think those roads up there are conducive to being a throughway, so to speak.
Right.
Which in fact people will want to use it for, if they're going out that way. And I still, again, you guys are doing everything right, but I just wonder about that. What kind of impact that is going to have up there, and I wonder if rather you've got it nicely paved and all that, if that's going to really do what needs to be done to make it livable for everybody, and not deal with it. You know, for all I know, that place is going to be a ghost town. You won't have many people staying there at different times. I don't know.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
It is your business. This is exactly what you should be doing.
No, it's just, traffic is a really big deal, you know, and I know you guys are building this big thing, but the traffic is what impacts not just the residents there, but the residents in the city who are using these roads and our visitors, quite frankly. So it sounds like it's gonna work down on the boulevard with you've got a much wider space there. But I'm just worried about these other 2 squeeze points, that's all. It sounds like Lake Street and Weirs Boulevard you have thought about. I'm not so sure about the other end, though. And I get nervous when you say, well, we've got this X amount of money, and they're gonna tell us where to put it. So maybe somebody else needs to be looking at that, too. And maybe Public Works has looked at it, I don't know. But I don't want that intersection to be lost, because that's on a hill, just like the other end.
Right.
And people coming up, going towards Guilford, usually get some speed up to get up that hill. And there have been accidents at that intersection that I am aware of, so some fatalities even over the years, so, okay, thank you.
No, that's something I will tell you that every single thing that the planning department and Public Works has asked us to look at, and that this board has asked us to, we've done. So if you want us to go and look at potentially some improvements up there, we'll do it. At some point, though, we gotta, just like what you were trying to do, we gotta bring it to closure. There was a study area that was approved for the project. Mm-hmm. The developers analyzed it. He's analyzed it for 5, 6, 7 different times, and we understand you need to be satisfied with it. And so if we need to go back and take a look at that intersection, we certainly will. But we do need to, at some point, from the traffic analysis, we can't keep analyzing everything. We'll do everything that you want us to look at, but I think what we want to try to do is give us the final list so we can go and do it and present it to you.
I share your view. It has been too long for a lot of people. Some people have suffered as a result of it. I'm not pointing fingers, don't get me wrong. I want to bring this to closure also. If you can, I don't know whether Charlie's concerns impact this. I'm not a traffic guy. If they do, I think we want to hear from it. And in terms of the closure, I assume you've read this memo of 12/13/17 regarding the status of this project from the planning department?
I have, yes.
Okay. And that you're moving forward to resolve the issues that remain outstanding in this project?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I want to know. I want to bring this to closure, one way or the other. I want to bring this to closure. Trust me on that.
So we will take a look at that intersection and come back with some recommendations.
And I appreciate that, only because it hadn't been mentioned.
Absolutely.
In the back of my mind,
Yep.
I was
No,
thinking about it.
absolutely. Just like the last comments we had with refreshing the numbers, it's a valid point.
Thank you very much.
Well, just a quick little comment regarding what Charlie's saying is, you said that White Oaks Road has diminished in traffic.
Correct.
So
10%.
when more people move in, it gets less traffic?
No. Historically, if you look at the traffic counts on that road, there's been several counts that have been done since 2008, continuing up through to 2015. If you look at the traffic volumes, they've actually gone down on that roadway since 2008.
Began a project.
I think he said that.
Which they had, what do you say, 20 more houses in the development when they started with the plan too?
It will obviously go up in the future with this project, the connection going through as well, and just general development in the
The
area.
final build out of August,
Right.
I mean, there's basically, August is like half built right now.
Well, eventually, something's gonna happen to that corner.
Right.
That's
Correct.
gonna impact traffic.
Right.
Whatever goes in there.
Right.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
something's gonna go in there.
Yeah, at the Surf Coaster location, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they'll have the same set of
To go in there.
15 years worth of studies, and they might be able to put something in that.
I was just commenting, we want something to go in there. So we want to do it right and be prepared for it, so.
That might warrant a traffic signal.
Forget it.
Yeah, don't scare me, Mike.
Big roundabout.
Don't scare me.
Forget it.
So, we appreciate you coming and giving us the information. Now I'm gonna ask Brandy and Dean for any staff review.
You have the written comments,
I think that's satisfactory, yeah.
and you need to have public
Okay, yeah.
hearing.
It's 7:34. I'd like to open it up to public comment. If anybody in the public has anything to say, please come forward, state your name.
Hi, my name's Dean Spinney. I live in Paugus Villa. My question, I have one or two, but question to the counselor here. The paragraph you were reading to us about ownership to when we purchased, is the statement as an emergency access road or a permanent road?
Let me show you the language.
Or is it subject to interpretation?
I'm sorry, sir, you were speaking away from the mic and I'm.
Or is it subject to interpretation?
I want to know what your question was, I missed that.
My question?
Yes.
Is the wording in the document that was given to us as homeowners when we purchased our homes?
You have glasses on there, it is right there. That's
Okay,
what
and
you received
whereabouts is that, sir?
as a purchase. Right there on the bottom, right there. That's what you received as a purchase.
I guess I didn't read that.
No. I want you to restate your question, just for the record, so that I can hear it and understand it.
My question was, when I purchased my home, the salespeople told me that there may be another access point to Paugus Villa. and it would be an emergency exit for vehicles to reach another location or to reach our location. As it's been pointed out to me at the bottom of page 3 of 7, that, no, excuse me, that page 4 of 7, this reservation may result in access from the Langley Cove subdivision through the villas at Paugus Woods subdivision. But it still does not say permanent access route.
So what your recollection of what you were told is that there may be a second access, but that it would be an emergency.
Emergency with a gate.
I just want to make sure.
Okay,
that
thank you.
That's clear.
The other one that I have is if this went through, we as an association, my numbers might not be right, but I think we pay like $24,000 a year between snow removal and lawn care. Who's going to be responsible for, it's almost a third going through from where Langley wants to come in and exit on White Oaks Road? Are we responsible for all of that maintenance?
Maintenance on the road?
Maintenance on the road, plowing, or any, and the other one would be, when this does, if it went through, and they start development of Langley Cove, are all the vehicles going to come through our neighborhood instead of coming up through Weirs because it's too much of a steep for all the tractor trailers, all the cement trucks, the dump trucks? It could be 24/7 from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 at night. Construction vehicles, to something that we knew really nothing about when we purchased our homes. It's a quiet neighborhood. I love it.
I thought there was a stipulation in that we made that no construction would go through Paugus Wood, no construction vehicles.
That's what we have in our packet.
Okay, I'm making comment, just
Okay.
making sure
I
that
understand
everything's
your
thrown out there so
concern.
that we all realize this.
Another 300 homes having access through your roads that you maintain
Is
now.
200 to 400
it's
cars
gonna
coming through there.
Be excess maintenance. That-
And more so from that end than our end.
That concern.
But I'm
Thank you.
not sure who would answer that question. Any idea, Dave?
I don't.
Okay. Appreciate your comments,
sir.
Mr. Spinney. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name's Dennis Peterson. I live at 6 Palmetto. I agree with the past speaker that I was told, too, there would be an emergency exit when we purchased the property. I have a different interpretation of my declaration. I wish I had brought it with me, because in the declaration that I read, it did say something about emergency vehicles. So I don't know if there's 2 copies out there or what, but I'm going to look that up, and I'll forward it to whoever you want me to.
Send it over to Brandy,
Yep.
so we can take a peek at it.
If you've got
It's
another
different.
declaration, I'd like to see it.
Well, the language in it's a little bit different than what I saw in this one. So, secondly, morally and ethically, this is wrong for our neighborhood to have those cars coming through here. Putting a fresh coat of hot top on that road with the current drainage conditions is not going to work. The drainage does not work on that street. Like, if you took a ride out there after it's plowed, you can see it all dug up. When the water comes down, it doesn't go where it's supposed to go. I wish we had the oversight that you're promising this new development's going to have. I feel bad for these people who live downhill from it, because with the reputation that Brady Sullivan has on our development, I wouldn't trust a word they said. What about the impact that's going to be at the end of, when we come out from Saratoga onto White Oaks? You get 200 or 400 cars here. There's also a stipulation in that declaration that at some point in time, the owners of Paugus Woods can put a gate limiting access to that development. I think it's 3.5 or whatever on there. But we'd have to provide keys to the access codes to the residents and things like that. If the board goes along with this, I definitely think at some point in time we'd do that. That would eliminate the access ability from other people. It makes more sense either to go with the original plan for the road, which is not gonna impact us, where it went around the other way, or make it an emergency gate. Emergency vehicles only. The people in that neighborhood have suffered enough. The last meeting you mentioned, somebody mentioned for Brady Sullivan to open up some dialogue with the residents here. We haven't heard nothing. They're not gonna contact us. They could give, watch myself, they could care less about us. They really do. All they think about is making money. And you as a board have the ability to make stipulations that aren't gonna impact us in our way of life there. I resent the fact this gentleman calling our place a trailer park, because it's not a trailer park. People keep their homes up down there, very conscientious about their property. We make it look good. To have these people come in and just, for the sake of making money, deteriorate our way of life is wrong. It is wrong. And no one here would want to live on that road with that traffic coming through, with the conditions of the drainage, the conditions of the slopes. It's just a mess. Try to get permits. I've been trying to get permits for property there, and they can't find permits. I wanted the inspections of my property. They can't find it. So as far as I know, my property's never been inspected. So that whole thing was a cluster. It was no oversight. I don't trust one thing these people say, and I don't think anybody else back here will either. They've lied to us, they've misled us, and they do shabby work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Go ahead.
I'd like to hear more about this gate. This gate.
It's in the document.
Is that the emergency exit?
Doesn't
they were talking
specify. It's a matter of interpretation.
about? The
So
last meeting, they talked about there was another access
originally, there was a
bridge.
there was another road that was approved by this board, I believe, years ago. The other thing too was 2005 and 2008, our houses weren't built. So we don't have any idea what the planning board did back in 2005, 2008, because we weren't there. So,
But again, sir, this gate, is this gate right at White Oaks Road? Or is
there's
this-
no specification in the, it's a matter of interpretation on that.
Gate's not there right now.
It's not there
I
now.
understand that. I understand that.
But
where-
we have the ability to put a gate up, but it doesn't say where.
Let's resolve this way. Can you provide me the page in which you claim that you are, you have a right to put in this gate? Because I don't want to read the whole
I
document.
think, Ray, you have that?
I can provide it once I get up there, I don't see it right, no, it's 3.
3.5.
I don't have a page, but it's 3.5.3. 3.5 in the document I have. That's in the
Have you got it?
declaration is 3.5.3.
Well, if you read this portion.
Do we have the document?
I'm sure that we have them downstairs.
Okay.
I don't have that, it doesn't go that far in the section that I have.
So
on
let me
here.
make this simple. Let me
We
make
have a
this
copy
simple.
right there, Dave.
It's right, it should be in there.
Have mine.
That's the full document?
That's the full document.
3.5.3.
Right on your toes, Mr. Philpott.
Three point 5.3, the declarant and the association reserve the right to install a gate at the entrance of the subdivision as long as all the owners and emergency services are provided access keys and codes. After the transition date, the association, by majority vote, shall have the right to install a gate as long as the owners and emergency vehicles are provided access keys.
Okay, and where's
What's the
that gate?
purpose of the gate?
It doesn't say.
For security.
So if we,
Security to
if
keep people
we
from-
decide we're gonna come in front of this board to say we're gonna put it on White Oaks Road, Saratoga on White Oaks Road, that's our interpretation. It's a matter of interpretation, just like the other thing he brought up.
How many units are in there right now?
I'm not sure.
40. And it was a 90-unit subdivision. So even if you would need majority vote, which you
Once it
wouldn't-
transitions over, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if that happens,
What happens to this subdivision? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think they'd have access.
Can you lock them out, basically, is what you, yeah.
Well, according to this, we do have the right to do it, so I mean, it's, we don't, I mean, that's not something we wanna do, we wanna be nice neighbors, but, at the same time, you know, they're doing nothing for us. And $30,000 for improvements, what, are you gonna put a stop sign there? I mean, $30,000 isn't gonna get too much.
Well, just one quick comment on a gate. I'm familiar with security gates.
Yeah.
Going in, you need a code.
Right.
Going out, you don't need a code. So
That
people
depends
coming
which
from
kind of-
Langley Code can drive right through there and the gate will open.
It depends on what kind of gate you get, because I do gates too, and you have it both ways.
Safety purposes, it's supposed to open automatically.
Well, it depends which type, if it's an emergency gate, it doesn't have to, as long as the fire department and police department have access.
Exactly.
They can open the
That's
gate from
coming
either
into the
side, either
development.
way. So,
All right, food for thought there.
I just, please, just give it real consideration for the people that live here. We've been through enough. We don't need any more aggravation from Brady Sullivan. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
My name is Pete Spinney. I live in the development across the street from Dean Spinney, you just spoke to. We have two houses. So we're not confused with one person speaking for another. I love living in that location. It's very conducive to a retired couple, and of which most of the 41 that live there, probably we have 2 school children that live in there. The rest of them are all mostly retired. We didn't buy in there to feel like we're getting bullied, and that's the way I feel. I feel like we're being bullied because there is nothing in the document that talks about a roadway. It talks about utilities having access through our property. That, I can assure you, is not what he showed us tonight. He talked utilities, but he said roadway. There's nothing in there about a roadway. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought there, because I had the documents reviewed. The next question I have is the roadways. We are obligated to maintain those roads. Never mind plowing, I'm talking about replacing those roads. We're gonna escrow, we have to. I don't think Brady Sullivan is escrowing at this point, but they're gonna have to once the roads are completed. That's a problem. We don't know when they're gonna be completed. But the problem is, who's gonna pay for that access road that goes from the large complex through our development to get out? Because we certainly shouldn't be paying for it.
Well, didn't he say that they were gonna completely do that road over?
That's great, but who's gonna fix it when it breaks down?
Yeah, who's gonna maintain it?
Who's gonna plow it? And there's utilities in that road, and they are crushed. Who fixes that? There's a lot of, and way I'm bringing that up, I had a utility issue. A year ago, our toilets didn't work. I have, believe it or not, I have a clean out. The only one in the development. I have a clean out right behind all of the utility pedestals. I asked why I have one, no answer. I did find out that it was fixed by Outdoor Properties, the people who cut our grass and plow our roads. They put that in because the prior owner, I'm second owner, the prior owner must have had a problem. We got a problem last year. So I went to Brady Sullivan, and I had a little bit of a fight because I said, where is my responsibility end and the association take over? He said, I have the responsibility to the sewer. I said, well, that's not my documents. My documents state that there's a 10-foot right-of-way in front of our house, and I have responsibility to that right-of-way. That's right where the clean-out is. And I said, I can understand that, but the problem of that blockage is about 80 feet down the road in front of my neighbor's property to the sewer that ends that far down the road. I'm not in the street, I'm in the utility right-of-way. It was fixed by Rowell. I don't know what the cost was, but the bottom line is that that pipe that was installed wrong. It was fixed by Rowell. my pipe was 7.5 feet below the surface of the ground, under all the other utilities, so they abandoned that and ran my pipe from my house all the way down, cut the driveway of my neighbor, went all the way down and into the sewer system. My point is, I don't understand who was supposed to watch the job while it was being done, and there are no records where my pipe went until they actually fished it and found out where it went. So I guess what I'm saying is, then I find out that we get this special assessment for that pipe. To everybody in the complex paid for my pipe to be replaced, which was not installed correctly in the first place, according to Rowell. So anyway, I'm done. I just thought I'd bring up some things that really concern me, but I want to finish with the fact that I love it. I love it there. But I don't think I will once we have to contend with 40% of what? 40% of 600 cars? Plus all the associated services that go in there. I mean, this, we get to talk about how many hundreds of cars. So I just think that, as I said before, we're being bullied because this was not divulged to us. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just one question, Dean. Just bring me up to speed and the rest of the board. When a development like Fargus Woods goes into play, at what point does the city take over the sewers?
It varies from project to project, but usually in this kind of a situation, the sewers are private and they stay with the association. And until the sewer gets to the main, in this case, probably on White Oak, it would be a private sewer at that point in time, and they would be maintaining. Now, like I say, it varies from project to project. That's the usual, but I'm not 100% sure for Fargus Woods.
Sir?
Ready?
Please.
Good evening, Ray Ball, 70 Sarasota Lane, August Woods. Lived there since 2010. Let me first say that I am also against this road. Absolutely against routing the traffic from a condominium association next door, through the complex. I got numerous points to cover. They're all in some way related to this issue, this question about amending the lot, the plan to eliminate lots to allow a road through. First, I want to follow up on a couple issues from last week. And we talked about it earlier. The attorneys say, we all knew about this, and you can say the process is this and the process is that, but I'd like to ask, did you bring anything along to illustrate that? I mean, you brought the document, but did you bring anything to say, here's the process, and oh, by the way, here's an illustration of what they signed and an example?
We did.
Yeah, I have it right here.
With an actual signature on it?
The deed that you signed, it references the document.
Right. But do you have any examples of where we actually signed that?
Bear in mind, I wasn't part of this process, so I didn't anticipate that. But there's the signature of the developer.
I understand that. So you've got a document and what seems to be a process, but we don't really have a confirmation per se of, okay, here it is, and oh, by the way, here's an example of what actually took place. I'm only asking that because I actually reviewed all of my documentation. I'm not saying that didn't happen. It may have. I just don't know. It was 9 years ago. But I went through all my documentation, my folders, contacted my attorney, and I said, can you go through what we have? And I still had the cover letter, December 2010, of everything that was part of my closing here. There's nothing in it that's, well, you can check for yourself. There's nothing in there, anything like that name. There is, a large document in there called the lease that we talked about. That's about 30 pages. And on the back, there's a cover page. On the back, it's appended a page that says, you read this, you understand it, and sign it and such. Well, I would think that as part of that same package, we'd have this, whatever you want to call it. I have a declaration of covenants. It's called something a little different there, but you would think that would be in that package, but nowhere in there.
This, if I may, I don't want to interrupt you. This would have been produced way in advance of a closing. This letter references a closing. You don't get to the closing unless you've signed this.
But it should be all part of this package.
Otherwise you're violating New Hampshire law.
As I said, that may be, but that's all I can provide that was part of the process.
Who was your realtor?
Oh, by the way, yes, the Realtor, we should mention that. The Realtor who all sold us lots is a Brady Sullivan employee. Good thing you pointed that out.
I'm just asking questions, that's all.
That's a good question.
Do you have a name?
I appreciate the help.
Do you have a name?
What was our Realtor's name? Denise St. Pierre. Also, at the last meeting, I think it was you indicated there was a reason that you couldn't finish the development, and I couldn't read my scratch notes. What was that reason again, that Paugus hadn't been finished yet?
In order to
That
build any
wasn't my
more than
cue,
50.
you're looking at me. Look at him.
No, I thought it was you, no?
No, you
Oh,
got the
okay.
wrong cue.
Oh, sorry.
Over there.
No.
He's taking
All
the
right.
heat now. All right.
Go ahead, John.
I just couldn't remember what it was.
No, to build any more than 49 units in any development, there has to be 2 physical accesses built.
And where is that documented? Where can I find that?
That's the fire department.
And is
There
there?
is no document.
There is no document.
That's the
It's a
unofficial.
Unofficial, unofficial.
It's a city regulation.
Okay.
Is it actually a regulation now?
I'm pretty sure it's codified somewhere. We can get you a copy.
And what was the reason for not doing the other access? The second access?
The secondary access to August?
Yeah.
They were not building phase 3 at the time, and they purchased Langley Cove in the meantime. So
Okay.
in 2010, when they were building phase 2, Langley Cove and August were already on the books to be a combined entrance.
So there was really no technical reason stopping it. It was just you had other priorities and it got put on the back burner and it just wasn't, that part.
When the projects were combined, as I showed as we talked about in 2010, in front of the planning board, because Brady Sullivan owned both projects, the entrances it was going to be combined. And that's what we portrayed to everyone in 2010. And that's what got put in the condominium documents before anyone ever bought in August.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next item is, again, we touched on it a little bit earlier, and that was that you guys diplomatically requested that Brady Sullivan reach out to the neighborhood and get us involved and, communicate and just be a good neighbor. And I'd like to ask, other than that one person, what's been done towards that task?
We got an increase in our association fees.
There was communication with the planning department on what the reasons for everything were. There was discussion with the planning board of the planning staff of what we were doing and what we were not doing.
That wasn't my question. My question was, what's been done as far as reaching out to the Paugus Woods residents as far as, communicating what's going on and.
I would say that, we might have made that request, but I don't know that we have the authority to
No,
require them to
you don't.
do
You
anything.
don't. You don't. It was just,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is, basically the bottom line is they don't want us involved. That's all I was trying to say. They don't want to do anything in good faith. Now let's forget about last week, as a lot of us probably would like to. Let's talk about the proposed access. And there's been some discussions about this, but it's still not clear to me. Hypothetically, this gets turned over to our association eventually at some point. Who is responsible for the actual infrastructure of the road? Not the plowing, but once it breaks up, who has to fix it? I'm assuming it's us.
I do not have that answer.
I wouldn't make that assumption.
So we did require the applicant to put together proposed changes to the Paugus Woods condo docs and the proposed Langley Cove condo docs that referenced the right to pass and repass for each association for each other. I don't know that we required them to come up with a breakdown of cost sharing, though, but that's certainly something that we could entertain as a condition if the board wants to.
Well, where I'm going with that is, you know, assuming for the moment, because maybe we don't have the actual answer, that it's a private road and we're going to be responsible for that, and I just don't understand logically, legally, or anything else how this group of 40 people that live here now are going to be responsible for paying for 30-40% of the traffic coming out of that other development. That just makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense at all. They should be two independent developments having nothing to do with each other when they're basically, you know, I'll call ours a condo association just to make it easy, but they're two separate independent condo associations.
Well, I think that's a good point, and maybe we ought to ask 553 LLC what their answer is to this. And they don't have to do it tonight, but...
You know, if they're town roads, it's a completely different story, you know.
Well, if there's increased traffic, and it's not from your association, if there's improvements to the roads, and additional plowing and maintenance issues as a result of the new development, in my... I'm not an expert on this, but in my limited way, I would think that there ought to be some accommodation for what those extra costs, or how those extra costs are going to be shared. Just saying.
All right, thank you. And just as a side note, as far as when we're talking about sharing here, it does, you know, we're going to be sharing some infrastructure stuff like sewer and water pumps and stuff stuff like that. And just to let you know, you know, I'm not sure how they were architected, but they're in constant breakdown and repair mode. So how you share that with another 300 units is beyond me. But just mentioning that. The next topic is I'm going to talk about these. It's a little bit different title than that, but it's the same content, I believe. It's Declaration of Covenants, Restrictions, and Easements. And I can give you a copy I have when I leave here if you'd like, or you can get your own copy. It doesn't make any difference to me. There's a Section 3, Easements, and there's a Section 3.6, and that is the paragraph that was read earlier about, you know, easements for roads and stuff. But honestly, like any legalese, it's very vague. It can be left open to interpretation. Again, there's no, as you mentioned, there's no details about a huge development. It just, on mine, it just says Lot 216. That could be anything. So, you know, is this in here? Yeah, it is, but, you know, it doesn't say anything about really the details of it. What is it for? What is it going to? So, as I was going through there, I found some interesting reading, and you're going to say, why is he talking about this? But there's a point to it. And the point being, before I even read it, is that there seems to be a lot of things in this document that Brady Sullivan picks and chooses as they want to do or not do, instead of, they're inconsistent, is what I'm saying. And there's a section 3.4.8 says, the right of the declarant and association to maintain and control all landscaping, lawn mowing, fall, spring cleanup, tree and shrub cutting, and maintenance of all lots. None of that's true. All they do is mow. And we've been told that's all we're doing is mowing. That's it. Mowing and snow plowing. So I'm just making a point that they kind of do what they want. Okay, back to that item 3.53. Literally, it says the declarant and association reserve the right to install a gate. I have the words at the entrance. Now, which entrance doesn't say, of the subdivision, as long as all owners and emergency vehicles are provided access and key codes. So, hypothetically, as we talked about before, once this is turned over, we can lock the door. So, what would be the point of having that gate, really? Now, I got a question for the council. refresh my memory, when is August Woods supposed to be turned over to homeowners?
That's a question I do not have for you, answer I do not have for you. I was not involved with the declaration. I'm just pointing out features of it. I cannot answer your question.
Okay, section 4, transition date. I'll paraphrase it, but it basically says transition date to the homeowners would either be when they finish selling all the lots or 2 years from the date that this document was filed, which was November 2009. So that states that this development is being turned over to us in just under 2 years. So I'm back to my statement from last month of there's no plan to finish the place. There's just no plan. Yeah, but I wanted to clarify it because maybe this was obsolete or something.
Missing it in translation, that's all. I'm just.
No, because I'm not an attorney, and some things I can misread or misinterpret.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. It was just.
For the record, you had the answer already, and you asked me the question. I understand.
So are you saying that it should already be turned over to you people?
No, it said when they sell all of the lots or 10 years, whichever, 10 years from the date that this, 10 years from the date this document was filed with the
I
county,
heard you say 2 years.
which will be 2 years from now.
Oh, okay.
So in 2 years, this, in theory, is getting turned over to us. So let me just summarize this a bit. Won't take up any more time. As I just said, they're not going to complete it. It's in my opinion that they never had plans to complete it for 2 reasons. One, they did get quite a bit of bad press and stuff from all the lawsuits and all the stuff with, if you guys weren't here, say between 2010 and 14 or whatever, a lot of bad press and stuff, so they probably put it on the back burner because of that. But, if you haven't figured it out yet, they haven't finished it because they want full control over everything while they get the other development done. They don't want us in the way, so this is their way of doing it. Well, we'll just set it aside. We can do anything we want. And I'll repeat what I said in the last meeting that, keep in mind at this point, it's not going to finish. They've deceived the town. The town is going to have a shortfall now because, it's not going to get finished. I'd say $150,000 a year in tax dollars. And I just question myself, why are there no consequences for that? Why are there no consequences all for leaving things just undone? It's bad for the neighborhoods. It's bad for the town. I just hope they don't do the same for Langley Cove. I wish you guys luck with all that because you don't know what you're going to get. And I'm not sure why the town, tolerates, something like that. But anyway, they've also deceived us in the development because, again, they haven't completed it. They haven't done a lot of repair and infrastructure issues when it comes to roads, drainage, basement infrastructure issues, and other stuff. They stonewall residents when we diplomatically, try to address some issues. Here's one for you. Say, in 2 years, they'll turn this property over to we'll call it August Woods Homeowners Association. Well, Brady Sullivan hasn't been collecting any money for reserves, so they're going to turn it over, and we're going to be broke day one. So, thanks. They also tend not to take any kind of corrective action unless forced into it by the legal system, and that has been our experience and many others. We talked about the roads earlier. 7 years, they've never been completed. They're not standing up now to the current low amount of traffic. They might be standard widths for town roads, but I'll tell you, they're certainly not engineered to the same technical specs as a town road. They're constantly applying major patches due to the road breaking up. There's grass growing through the pavement. Many areas on the pavement are actually missing, never been repatched. There's insufficient base and drainage under the road, causing washouts and abnormal frost heaves. There's very little crown in the road. It's horribly poor drainage. It drains into yards instead of into the catch basins. I don't think they're just not engineered to adequately handle what we're talking about here, this extra traffic. It's just, that's not how they were designed. So in regards to the access road, again, I'll state that I'm completely against it. I guess if we had to have one, a locked emergency road where, you know, the emergency traffic just has access to it. So on a final note here, I'm going to leave you with a document, and it's really for two reasons. Just to show you that Paugus Woods is not an isolated incident when it comes to, I'll call it, problems and stuff. And that to illustrate what a trail of destruction that Brady Sullivan leaves behind when they do their work. I will provide you with this National Public Radio document, dated about a year ago. It's very good reading. I'll leave it with you, but basically it's pages and pages and pages and pages of lawsuits. So I'll just leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
You can take that back if you want.
Anybody else?
.537 Weirs Boulevard, Paul Wheaton. I've spoke a few times. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. My concerns is being an internal butter, where's the emergency access road installation, and John did reach out to me in credit and work that out. I'm pleased with that. The bunker that was going in between the two homes, and I was concerned about my well, that's been addressed. So I just want to, you know, say some things like that. You have reached out and worked, and I appreciate that, sir. I do have a concern still, and that is when this Langley Cove Road that we have access to, access my property, will I be part of that association? I don't, who maintains the road? That association people will maintain the road? But I won't be part of that?
The association will maintain the road.
Okay.
The only thing that would not get maintained is like from the end of Shelby Court into your property. That'd be the only section that you have left to maintain.
Yeah, right, I got it ready for you.
From the end of the turnaround, yes. From right here to here.
Okay, and this house you're installing, there's a house installing right here. Is there access to the T, or will they be in the same situation as myself and
No,
Pete?
they're on the same. They're on the same already.
So the three of us will be.
I can look into that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I forgot there was a house right next to you. So
Yeah.
I can look into that.
I appreciate that. Number 8 on page 4 of 7 of the, what's it called? The memorandum. States, it's about the beach piece. You recall, you've been around a while, that the beach, they wanted to have people use the beach property, this 30-foot beach that's down right on Weirs Boulevard, right across from my house. What will be done to ensure that these residents don't get the assumption they can all go down and use that property? There's about 5 of us camps that have been deeded into that since the 50s. And 553 was one of them, and now that's the LLC and owns all that property. I'm just concerned that these people, when they come in, they're just going to go down there. It's going to be inundated with folks going down there, whether there's a no trespassing sign or not. I don't know if you have the authority to do anything, but can anything be put in documents that says, in those nice documents you put together for closings?
There was in the documents on our rules and regulations that beach was never to be used by that development.
Right, it says, there's no lake, number 8, again, on 4 of 7, there's no lake access for this property as proposed. If access is provided to any of the unit owners to any lot within the city, it has to be approved, includes that's the beach there. But what's happening is, and you know, it's nothing personal. You know, I don't begrudge a man doing what he wants with his land. This is America. We all do the best we can. But there's been more and more people down there just saying, hey, oh yeah, Shane said I could come down. And there's beach boats up on the beach. There's people I've never seen in my life. Granted, he owns it. He can have people coming down there. So my fear is that's going to be the word in the development up there. Oh, don't worry about it. Just tell him I said you could go down there, and it will just be covered with people. Is there any way we can ensure that doesn't happen? Maybe you don't have the authority to. I'm not sure. But that's what I foresee happening.
Yeah, I wouldn't envision that we would have the authority to do that. You know, how do you stop a trespasser from trespassing?
Yeah.
Is really what you're asking.
Well, it's just something to consider when you're going through all these other things you have to consider. It's,
Is there a sign there now?
there is a no trespassing sign there now, yeah. Right.
Excuse me, Paul, how many people use the beach now? How
There's
many-
about 4 or 5 camps, and it's usually very few. I'm down there raking and cleaning. There's about 4 or 5 of us that
There's
can.
only like 4 or 5 deeded property rights? to that
Correct,
beach?
correct. All right, and I just had another question, John, maybe you can answer in an email for me or something. What is gonna happen with that piece of property that what the retention bunker was gonna go into? What's the surface gonna be? Is there gonna be some type of surface structure brought in? Is there any way that the drainage that you propose to run through there is gonna be able to run through there and get to that catch basin? Are you putting at the end of the road? Like, what's the surface cover gonna look like right in here?
Well, it's basically just a swale going through, coming across to the catch basin.
All existing trees all gone, gonna be taken down, it's gonna be loomed and seeded, it's
No, I
gonna be
mean,
gravel?
I think the garden goes over to this point
Yeah, it's
already.
nice.
But, I can.
All right,
take a
if you
look
could do
at
that, that'd be great. Question about the bike paths that are proposed, and the town wants some bike paths, I guess, along Weirs Boulevard. It would be nice, you know, it'd be nice for tourists to ride along Paugus Bay and all, but it's nice and wide, as they mentioned, down as you get towards that pump house. But in front of mine, the road's right up against rock. Take a ride down across from Whispering Pines, right up the hill. That's my house up there. That's rock right there. You're not putting any sidewalk or any bike path in on that side of the road without some serious blasting and digging. I'm just wondering if everyone understands the narrowness right there. It's extremely narrow. And to put a sidewalk in and a bike path in and then have the lanes pulling off to get up into the development, it's a lot. I just want, people should please take a ride down there. I've invited some of you to come up and take a look. No one's taking me up on it.
I tried.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
After the blizzard.
That's actually something I can answer right away.
Yeah.
The transition to our project doesn't affect any of the stuff in front of this place. When the city says that they're going to finish it, it will absolutely be affected.
Right.
But for Langley Cove, the transition doesn't affect anything at that point, so.
Who said the city was gonna finish?
Nobody said the city was going to do anything at the moment. But the idea is long-term planning, just like we require sidewalks, because the idea is to connect them at some point. The idea is if bike paths are also put in at some point, perhaps, Weirs Boulevard in some sections, needs some work or reconstruction at some point down the road, perhaps we can tie it in and eventually
Bless you.
have a full-length
Okay.
service.
I don't wanna be quoted here as the city saying they're gonna do anything.
No one is committing
with
to anything.
sidewalks or bicycle paths or anything.
I just finished, and again, I appreciate your time. I just finished by, please consider the traffic and consider not just us that live there, it's gonna be miserable for us, but the whole town. I know on a Saturday, I wanna take my family up to Weirs and spend the day up there. I'm not gonna wait and bumper to bumper traffic every weekend going down through that road. And that's exactly what it's gonna be like. And then people will go elsewhere. I mean, I know we wanna put houses and buildings in and generate tax dollars, but we gotta think about where we're getting those tax dollars and how much it's really costing us to get those tax dollars. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Jack Hodge, 561 Weirs Boulevard. Just a couple bullet points that have been discussed before here. One is the road that everybody seems to be concerned about, and it cuts right directly through my driveway. And the easements and all are shown on the documents, and I hope they stay intact because it runs right through my driveway. The speed limit on that road is posted or tentatively at 25. That's awful fast for a development road. I'm just saying that. John said he has spoken to at least one of the neighbors, Paul, because he couldn't get a hold of other landowners. There's my number. Thank you. Not an excuse now. And water hookup. I know there are several residents that do not want to be hooked up. I'm on a well and a septic. And my concern with that, I understand there's going to be some monitoring for a period of time, possibly up to 5 years. I would almost prefer to have the opportunity to hook up directly and just eliminate that as an issue. And I would like that to be part of our plan as a neighbor and resident of this project. I'm convinced it will go through, regardless of what most of us think or want. So we're trying to do it as good neighbors and be a part of it without some of the issues that Paugus Woods have run up against, which is a shame to find that they were stopped. Why start another project when they haven't finished the last one? But that's a battle they're fighting. So I feel for their pain immensely, and I hope it doesn't continue on to the next one. So I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other residents like to be heard? If not, I'm going to go ahead and close the public meeting. Continue the
No,
public
close
meeting.
it and then vote
We're
to
going to
continue.
close it right now at 8:22. And now we're going to get a motion to continue this.
I want to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Apart from the concerns that I've already addressed, we talked about the situation at Paugus Woods, and I think the rationale that was provided the last time we were here is that there was no obligation to finish the roads at Paugus Woods until the entire project had been built out, or 10 years had passed, and that in order to build out Paugus Woods, they needed another access, which was why that hadn't occurred. That's my recollection of the status of this. And however this goes forward, if there's an approval, there's got to be a provision that addresses the roads in their current condition in Paugus Woods, not just the access roads that they're planning on building, but the entire roads situation in Paugus Woods, so that those are finished roads, and this association is given the opportunity to finally become their own association. And I don't know if we can do that, but that would be something that I would be looking forward to in terms of mechanisms, at least to address the concerns from these folks who have been dealing with this since 2010 now, which is, like I said last month, how did this happen? I'm not looking to point fingers. I'm not looking to assess blame. I'm not looking to say anything but the future's got to be a little brighter for everybody up there. And if we approve this project, it's got to be bright for the folks who are going to buy in there, and it's got to be bright for the folks who are living there now in Paugus Woods. So we address the road situation in some fashion, if that's feasible. And I'm not the planner, you guys are, so that's my comment.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So we have had, obviously, contact with some residents of Paugus Woods who have previously expressed to staff concerns about condition of roads in the area. And part of the discussion that we've had with the applicant for Langley Cove has resulted in their statement tonight that they're going to basically repair, rebuild, whatever terminology you want to use, but Palmetto Drive, I think it is, or Lane, and Sarasota, and to the point where it's practically, for all intents and purposes, a new road.
Will
Now,
Well,
That has been the result of discussions that we have collectively had over the course of this application. Now, the second part to your thing is, as I understand it, the future maintenance of those roads. And I think that is a very legitimate concern, and I would be looking for the board to give us some direction of how you would want us to handle that with the applicant in the next month, so that we can come back in February with hopefully resolution to that. But I can't drive that bus.
Well, I'll drive that bus.
The planning board needs to give us some direction as to what you think would be acceptable or what would be necessary.
Sure.
In the past, in all developments, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's supposed to be a bond put up, correct? For road maintenance and destroying of the roads? That the builder, the developer has to put up a bond, and that bond, if the road gets destroyed, that bond pays for the repairs and the maintenance of that road, in order to put the
No,
development
that's
through.
for a finite period of time.
Yeah,
We're talking long-term here.
That's for city road, not. These
We're
are private-
talking
these-
long-term here.
These
So-
are private roads. They were always intended to be private roads, and there is no intention whatsoever to make them public. They're private roads. They are 100% strictly the responsibility of the homeowners association.
Maybe we could get, approach it this way. Maybe we could get what the cost of the maintenance of the roads to the association has been for the last 2 or 3 years, and in some fashion project what the additional cost of maintenance would be, and run a percentage. And that's one approach. The other approach is for, and I don't think this is likely to happen, but is for Pogus Woods and 553 LLC to actually have a substantive conversation about what's going on and come to some kind of an agreement. But there's got to be a mechanism to protect the increased costs, and I'm not even sure that's within our jurisdiction or our venue, but there's got to be a mechanism to project what the future maintenance of the roads will be as a result of what, as I understand it, you're telling me now, that they're going to fix all the roads in Pogus Woods, they're going to take care of them.
Well, 2 roads, yeah.
Just 2 roads.
Just the 2 roads.
All of them.
But,
What about
yeah.
the other ones?
They're on their
Well,
own.
there are other
There's
roads.
Well, what about
development.
those?
Those are only.
In theory, the new traffic doesn't use them, in theory.
Has nothing to do with this, yeah.
I get the in theory, the traffic doesn't use them. Here's the practical spot. Here's the practical spot. We got folks living up at Pogus Woods on how many other roads are there up there?
There's Siesta Lane as well, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
And there will be others when they finish out the project.
Yeah. Well, there's
But I
one
would assume
gentleman
those
that
would
doesn't
be
think
new.
that project's
That's
ever
one
gonna.
that wouldn't.
There's one gentleman that doesn't think that project's ever gonna get finished. So,
I'd be a rich man if I knew the future.
you know, I'm not gonna say it again. Probably I will. How did this happen? But I'm looking for a solution, and it's not just 2 roads.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Dean, there is a development in Meredith that I'm very familiar with that has 3 different projects on the same road. They all share it equally.
Yeah, I know, I understand, and if you go in that intention ahead of time, that is very possible. The situation that we're in regarding Pogus Woods in particular, it's a very difficult situation for the present homeowners because they do not control their homeowners association. They have not reached the threshold that they control. They have no seats on the board. There is no board. They
haven't reached their threshold.
They haven't reached their threshold.
Because there's a second entrance hasn't been proposed.
I understand.
Now a second entrance is being proposed.
Right.
All right.
So we are we are working with Brady Sullivan. When this proposal to combine the, I know this has been talked about for several years. It predates me, it predates Brandy. It predates everybody on this board except for the chairman who's not here, okay? So, but we are, and probably Jay, sorry. So we are looking to them to update the homeowners association documents for Paugus Woods and create condo documents for Langley Cove that will address the pass and repass, egress and regress, and all of that stuff. And if, as part of that, the board wants us to pursue some type of cost sharing for future maintenance, increased maintenance that is going to occur within Paugus Woods because of this agreement, then we will pursue that. But I need that direction from the board.
So, do you want to vote from the board to pursue that? Do you,
Consensus,
Consensus?
however you want to do it.
would everybody agree that we should be pursuing some kind of cost-sharing?
I believe so, because if they're gonna share the road, it's not like they're gonna say Langley Cove.
Let me ask it
can't go in
another
there.
way. Does anyone disagree? Okay.
Dean, let me ask a question, please. I don't have the survey of Paugus Woods, but is it possible just to build another road that goes to White Oak without touching the residential
The
along the side?
original proposal for Paugus Woods is a 92-unit, 91-unit, whatever it is,
And it
development.
had a separate road.
And it has a proposed second road that goes basically from the southern end of the development through wetlands and into White Oaks Road.
Why is it out of the question at this
It
point?
is not out of the question. It is not out of the question, okay?
It would make a lot of people happy if there was a separate road.
And there was, my understanding, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that there was, at the very least, a feasibility study done for the Langley Cove project of a second access to somewhere else. But again, it's costly, it's environmentally damaging because it goes through a lot of wetlands. And it's not that it's impossible, and the Paugus Woods second access at least was designed from a bird's eye view standpoint, not designed from a standpoint of what's actually happening on the ground. But at least it was designed and presented, and we have it as part of our plans. And that could be done. They could build the 90 whatever units it is in Paugus Woods, build that second access, and has nothing to do with Langley Cove. This proposal has been in the works now for a number of years. I have not seen anything that contradicts what Brady Sullivan has said about them updating the homeowners association documents for Paugus Woods before anyone bought in there. Now, there are some folks in the audience who are indicating that there may be different versions of that document floating around. I haven't seen them, so I don't know, okay? And I would encourage them to share them with us so that we can figure out what's going on. There's certain sections that they've been reading. The document that we have doesn't have those sections. So whether it's a earlier or later version of that document, or whether it's a different document, I don't know, okay? But we don't have that. We don't have it complete. So if we got those, we could look at those things. So so the board needs to keep in mind that you have two applications before you. You have an application for Langley Cove, and you have an application to modify the subdivision site plan for Paugus Woods. You know, that's the second thing on the agenda here, right? Okay. The applicant wisely is presenting them as kind of a total picture here, and we're treating them so far as a total picture. When we get to, whenever we get to the final determination, you're gonna be taking two separate votes. You're gonna take a vote on Langley Cove, and you're gonna be taking a vote on the modification of Paugus Woods. But at this point in time, unfortunately, from many people's standpoint, I'm sure, the residents of Paugus Woods don't have a direct say in how their homeowners' documents are being amended. Now, having said that, you're in the middle of that process. By voting approval of the second application for the modification of Paugus Woods, and assuming that we do all the things that we normally do and will do, you're also approving basically the modification of those homeowners association, which is going to allow them to do this. So the question that's asked is, how did this happen, and what can we do about it? The application is asking you to do that. The two applications are asking you to do that.
So there's a second application to modify Paugus Woods. See, I've been way busy, so I'm really slow here. There's a second application to modify Paugus Woods, to give it back to the homeowners associations. No?
No. The proposal is to take one lot, basically change it into a access road between the two developments.
To accommodate the access road?
Both.
To accommodate the two access roads that they're proposing
To create the two
now?
access roads for both developments.
You know, I don't know.
And if I may, David, just before you continue, from putting on my, and I use the term loosely, putting on my professional planner's hat.
I rely on you for that,
Okay.
Dan.
The idea of having cross-connection.
Yeah.
From a traffic flow standpoint.
It's a good one.
Is a good thing. Does it come with ramifications and consequences? Yes. But overall, to have traffic flow being able to go different directions is overall a good thing.
I can understand that. I can understand that. I'm looking for a way, because I don't have to blame anybody to recognize the situation here is that Paugus Woods, all their roads are deteriorating. And we have some ability to do something about that. Not just the roads that they're going to build, but the roads that other folks have lived on that have been expecting to have built, not in 10 years, but on completion of the project, and have been waiting around now for 7 years. You know, I'm looking for a way to resolve that. I am looking for a way to deal with that.
All right, so the board has given us the direction by consensus for us to pursue the matter of some type of cost sharing, and we will pursue that with the applicant. And we will come, either we or the applicant will come back with the resolution to that, one way or the other.
Okay.
All right, and discussion to continue. However, I do want to, just one little thing on what you said, it's New England, all roads are deteriorating all the time, especially over 7 years.
I know, but we do maintenance on them.
We do, right.
We spend a lot of money doing maintenance.
We go back to the situation that the homeowners, the present homeowners at Paugus Woods are in a very difficult situation.
Right.
David,
I want to do something to address that. Of course there's going to be future maintenance.
I think the concern is too, when that turnover happens, which still, I think we're a decent way out, as everyone's acknowledged, that those roads are left in a decent situation, so that when it's turned right over to the residents, you know, we have a portion, a decent portion of that infrastructure looks like it's gonna be brand new, as we've heard. If that whole group is left in similar condition, at least they would have time for planning and even saving to repair those roads. And all we're saying is, can we help in some way to meet those conditions to help smooth this out so this project can be
Well-
semi-palpable, and that's all we're asking for a condition.
At some point in time, all of the roads need to be finished
Yeah, and I don't think there's roads, I'm talking about the existing roads.
by the developer, I'm saying. If both of these proposals are approved by the board, I fully expect that someone is going to pursue building additional units in Paugus Woods, in which case those roads are, the paper streets are going to get built, and then the rest of the development gets the finished top coat and everything else that goes along with that. At some point in time, that could be, 3 years, it could be
All I'm
30
saying
years,
is
I don't know.
The pursuit of cost sharing and looking at those documents, that has to do with cost sharing.
Yeah.
Because when those get turned over to the residents, are they bankrupt right away, So I think that's a legitimate concern.
Yep, okay.
As their development's been left that way for a decade.
Understood. And the applicant's here, and I'm sure that they're understanding as well.
I know they're listening.
Any other feedback from the board?
I move to continue this application to next meeting in February, which is
February 6th.
February 6th, 2018.
Do I get a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
I may not be here for the 6th, and I may not be here for March. So I just want to, and I obviously have 1,000% faith in the planning department, but I really hope that we're really, really positive that we're looking at everything, because the residents at Paugus Woods didn't just bring up roads, they brought up a lot of other stuff. And that worries me. So I want, and I think
There are some issues within Paugus Woods, and I don't want to go into them at this point in time.
I understand that.
There are some issues in Paugus Woods that we have been made aware of, that some residents have asked us to take care of, and they are out of our purview. They are within the purview of a civil matter.
that may well be, but that being said, I just want to make sure on the stuff that we do have control of, that it's really locked up tight. Maybe this will still be going on in April when I definitely be back here. But if not, I'm just throwing it out to my fellow board members, because I know you'll do that good job of making sure. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Still need a second?
Second.
All those in favor of continuing it? All those opposed? Motion passes. We're going to continue it till February 6th.
I think I'll be on the train while you guys are having this meeting.
There'll be an intermission buffet,
Be
right?
done. Oh, you get a buffet?
Is that a copy for us? We'll take it,
A
thank you.
buffet? Jeez, you've been away
Or
from this
some
place
snacks.
too long.
We got all this technology, we might as well have a few
Well,
snacks.
it was 12 midnight the last time.
They have to get ready.
It was pretty late.
It was
Really?
late.
I think 10:30.
It was late.
Our budget meeting didn't last that long.
Edwin?
We
We
had-
need
it was
to
10:30.
continue the Paugus
The
Woods.
thing is, I think the other people, the four
Is
people.
this,
on the
is
agenda
this
item as well.
Project
Get
Woods
here,
thing that we're
I'm
doing
just
next,
waiting
is that
for
just,
someone to get
since we
Because
are
they'd be in
we
and out from,
substantive of doing anything on that
But I
tonight?
think it's
Do you want
the
to
way
take
the
a small
We need to quickly need to do a continuation on the Paugus Woods portion also. So I need a motion to continue Paugus Woods.
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor of continuing the Paugus Woods
We're getting rid of that
The same
tonight.
February 6th date.
to the February 6th
February
date?
6th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, if that's okay with everybody?
Yeah.
All right.
Just a reminder that while we're on recess, the recording and the streaming live is still taking place. There's no way to stop it.
That's fine.
So the mics are hot.
Okay.
So, Watch yourself.
Even us in this, in a small northern school district can stop the audio. I just want you to know that.
Put your, no,
Pat, are you here for a project?
Oh, yes, housing authority.
Oh, no, I didn't see you on the agenda.
You got read to receive.
Yes.
How are you, Bill? Just fine.
well, yeah, at the beginning, I think, yeah, you can't form another meeting other than this meeting to discuss a application.
I have a magic key too.
That's what the issue with David said.
sure, yeah.
about, Bill.
Yeah, but
Calling
the sound
people on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Discussing the whole situation, which really isn't the problem.
Oh, good. Good. Because I was looking at I saw you over and I was looking at the agenda and I went, oh no, don't forget to.
I think in that original document.
I figured if you didn't get a staff review, you would have called.
So the second road bypasses all the development, and they can't go in through the development onto White Oaks, they gotta go around it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, even at that, I believe the other portion of this development goes through that section. So that in order for them to continue the development, they have to do that. Have to build at least partial of that road to get those other houses in. But like,
Yeah, we took a 5-minute recess. So if you need to take a break or use the restroom, now's the time.
The rest of the development's gonna go, nothing. They're gonna just leave it the way it is.
This is looking a little, you got the dark.
Still eventually sell the land, you know, I mean,
With your copies of the minutes?
yeah, the FDL is there.
That's just.
John, you know we don't expect you at a TRC or anything tomorrow, right? Okay, I just want to make sure, because we have a TRC and you're not on the agenda, and I just wanted to make sure there was no confusion.
In the big city.
Okay.
Worse in the big city. I mean, they are.
He did, yep, so that's all set, and if you want to get us the final plans and the Mylar.
Oh, this is the buffet?
It's the best you can do, I can do.
Thank you.
Can you pass one over to Mike, please?
Sure.
It'll keep us going.
Little energy, can't hurt.
Working the polls, 20 after 6 until. 20 after. You on a break right now? 39 votes.
Seriously. Building the road up the mountains. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, easy. The infrastructure.
So what, a little bit of that.
The infrastructure.
What was it?
Oh, thank
Big
you.
ticket.
I'm going next.
Sure.
Can I hang up my phone? Can you see?
Bring it around.
I'm gonna take this guy out though. He's got all kinds of electronics and everything.
Well, the camera will hit that. The camera will hit it.
All right, she
And
says.
it'll come up on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Unless the
Back where
camera's
it
not
is,
working.
Like that? Yeah. Sorry. Gotta do what I'm saying.
It does not respond by 5 o'clock.
Looks like it's good.
Have you gotten inside of it yet? I haven't seen the inside. Starting about it, it's been like 3 months. September 23rd or 24th. And you have no idea what you're walking into. The neighbors told us it's got wood floor. Yeah. Got fireplace upstairs, pellet stove, generator. Gone.
Yeah, they installed all that.
thinking, I said this to Dean earlier, but it looks like he was back and forth, so he must be here really late with the election.
Or just get your hopes down, so if everything's good,
'Cause I wasn't sure if he had punched out or not already, so if he had, I figured if we need to let, if we need to let anyone know, he stayed for us, but. That's Dan's. I wanted to.
Can we get a course at some point on using all of these equipment?
We could certainly make an appointment, yeah. We could certainly make an appointment.
I wanna be taken care of.
Yeah, the house I had to make work. It had alleys.
Yeah, easier for us to say, but.
Where'd those come from? Thank you.
Gail.
Dean, can I talk to you for a second? I just got a call from my son.
Okay.
Just don't want to leave this.
All right.
thing.
Let's get rocking and rolling here.
Got a little chocolate action right here.
Yeah, that's your buffet.
That's our buffet?
Gail came through.
Here's what I'm suggesting. That we do that and schedule the couple.
The colors recent,
No.
you know? But there's a dark one.
Got some crazy monitor stands
One
over
for
there.
dark. There is a dark. Did you put those on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, it comes up and I don't know.
Is this dark?
So I want to,
Chocolate?
I want to give it all.
You know what really irritates me is that the two monitor stands aren't of equal.
Good. So we can give it the okay?
I should buy the same one and just done both the same.
So that we
It's very
loop
painful.
in the
You
council.
survived.
That's what, this was the whole.
Thinking about it, this whole meeting, I'm just like, the wiring, I'm falling over here.
All right, everybody, it's 8:52. I'm going to call this meeting back in order. And now we're going to be hearing from the applicant for 200 Garland Street, or Garfield Street, I'm sorry, proposed change of ownership to condominium. Applicant?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I'm Attorney Phil Brouillard for CNR Realty Trust. This is a fairly straightforward change of ownership into 3 units and a piece of common area. We have been to TRC, and the documents of the condominium documents have been reviewed. Basically, this is a 2.86 acre piece of property. It's being divided into 3 units. And a large commercial unit with a spare garage, another commercial unit, and a house that's being used as a residence, but has the capability of having a commercial building built near it. This property has been in more or less of a construction yard for construction, paving, landscaping for the last 70 years, and it's grandfathered as to use. The 3 units are shown on the property. It will have no impact on the existing use of the property. It's grandfathered as to its existing construction yard and shop use. It has been in this matter, used in this way for 70 years. Unit A was built in 1982, and it has its own separate well and city sewer and separate electric meter. Unit B was built in 1983 and has its own separate well and city sewer and separate electric meter. And Unit C was built in 1994 and it has its own separate well, city sewer, and separate electric meter. There's also 3 bills for each of those. The existing uses of the units will not change. There's no impact to city or the abutters. The change of use is only from sole ownership to condominium form of ownership. Unit B will be restricted for residential use, but would allow an accessory building if necessary. We've attached photographs to the application. Sometimes this property is sort of tucked away, and a lot of people haven't really seen it, but you get a good flavor for it by looking at the photos. The property has to use a right-of-way, and we have a letter from the abutter, George Hawkins, saying that he agrees with this proposal. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that's pretty much it.
Who's the abutter for the right-of-way?
George Hawkins, and the letter from him is signed in the package.
And I'd ask the public if there's any, 8:55, any public input? I see none. I'd ask staff for a review.
This is exactly as Attorney Brouillard said. It's simply a change in the form of ownership. That being said, we do have just 2 plan revisions that we're requesting. We're requesting that striping be added to delineate the common right-of-way through the subject property.
And we've agreed to that, yep.
And that a note is added to the plan stating that any additions, changes of use, or expansions to the existing businesses and/or structures must submit to the city for any and all appropriate review and approvals. This is because, as he said, the use is considered grandfathered, so existing non-conforming, but any expansion of that use still needs appropriate reviews and approvals.
And we agreed to that as well, and that's also in the condominium documents, that approval needs to be obtained.
Yep, so we've gotten we've received the condo docs, we've reviewed them, we don't have any requested changes to that. It's pretty simple, as far as tonight's agenda goes anyway.
All right, I'd ask the members of the board if they have any questions. I see none, and board would
I
like,
just have one
go
quick
ahead,
question.
sir.
Phil, the road that goes in there off of Garfield Street, is that an actual shared driveway?
No, the big driveway that you see, this part of it's a right-of-way from Garfield Street across Mr. Hawkins's property to here. But then this part of it is actually part of the condominium.
Okay.
But we're gonna stripe the whole thing.
So who owns the right-of-way?
Well, Mr. Hawkins owns the right-of-way, but he's signed a letter saying he agrees to it, and it's in the deed for this big property that they have the right to use the right-of-way.
Okay, and where it's gonna be divided by, as a condominium?
Right
Is
here.
there gonna be individual actual owners now? And no-
Yes. And these lines here show this is Unit C, this is Unit B, and then this here is Unit A.
And so who's gonna maintain that road?
This road here is gonna be maintained by Unit B, but this is all like paved parking area. So each owner will maintain their own area, but Unit B is gonna plow the right of way all the way through.
Okay. All right.
That's their obligation in their deed.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that
It's
one
all-
of the owners weren't gonna get stuck with the whole till.
No,
After they
and-
sold it to someone else, and they're stuck with it.
No, there's quite a collection of plow trucks in there too.
Okay.
All right. So at this point, I'd like to ask the board if they'd like to take action, and if so, if someone's interested in making a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve application PL 2017-0106SU. And the staff recommendations to be included in that, number 1, project completion deadline. Number 2, plan revisions A through B. Number 3, conditions that must be met prior to final approval or recording of the Mylar. Through A through D. 4, conditions applicable during and after constructions, A through D.
I'll second that.
All those members in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? See none opposed, that motion does pass. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience for me and everybody else tonight. It's true public service.
Now, we're gonna hear 423 Main Street, proposal to redevelop the existing building. I'd like to open that up. It is 9 o'clock, and we're gonna open that up to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Smith, for the record, representing the applicant. I need to hang some plans up first.
Yes, sir.
Old-fashioned way.
Oh, I have one.
It's a nice building.
It's very nice of you. Sacrifice myself.
I brought some more tonight. I'll help make a donation.
Thank you, Steve.
Do you need a receipt so you can write that off? I said, do you need a receipt so you can write those off?
No, I'm okay with that. I borrowed it from one of the guys who works for me, so I'm not gonna worry.
Consider a bonus with its new tax money.
Tax money, get it?
Yes. So, we've got the plans up on the board. I have, for those of you that can't see any better than I can see, I have a colored rendering.
Yeah, we have that.
Thank you. To see a little better. Table.
Where did I get that picture? Yeah. We have it in our packet.
I'm all set.
Yeah.
Did well passing notes.
We're right on top of this.
How'd you make that building go away behind it?
That one's bigger.
I can't take credit.
That's real magic right there.
I can't take credit for the picture. It was done by the architect.
Move the picture over.
Again, Steve Smith.
Did a good job on this one, didn't she?
Steve Smith of Steve Smith and Associates. I'm here actually representing the current owner of the property, Land Wild Holdings, which is the Volpe family. And the applicant is Laconia Housing and Redevelopment Authority. And Mr. Weaver is here from the Laconia Housing and Redevelopment Authority. The subject site is 423 South Main Street. It was the former location of Melcher and Prescott Insurance. And I believe they had other tenants in the building when they were in that site. They have since moved across the street to the old telephone building, just in the opposite corner. This tax map lot is 442-14240. It's in the DRD Downtown Resident Riverfront District, and we have a total land area here of 2,700 square feet or 0.47 acres. The plan at the bottom is the existing conditions plan. The plan at the top left, I've highlighted the proposed improvements that you want to make, and I'll go over that. And then, of course, the plan on the right is an elevation view of what the building will look like if we are successful in completing this project. The lot itself actually fronts on South Main Street. It backs up to the property currently owned by the Laconia Housing and Redevelopment Authority, the towers. The authority has certain access easements over the property that we're talking about here to get to their parking area, which is in the rear. There are some cross easements that are in Land Wild Holding for there to get access across the housing property to get to the back parking area when they were using their building. So there are cross easements on the property. Those would basically go away because it would be held, the entities would be held by Laconia Housing and Redevelopment. And we have some reorganization of that, and I'll go through that. The building on site is a 13,800 square foot building. Was built based on tax records in 1969. It is supported currently by 36 parking spaces, as represented on the lower plan. There's parking to the south of the existing building, and there's parking to the rear, what would be the easterly side of the building, which they would have to access through the redevelopment property to get to that parking when it was used as the insurance building. Our proposal here is to convert the existing building, office building, into 16 rental units, 14 one-bedroom, 2 two-bedroom units for qualified senior citizens age 62 and above. We're proposing to modify the existing parking to meet the multifamily parking requirements of 1.5 spaces per unit. We propose to add handicap parking to meet the ADA requirements on the site. Our proposal is to construct a new entrance vestibule with an elevator for handicap accessibility to all the floors. And you'll be able to hear me over here. This is the back side of the building. This is South Main Street. In this corner, we're proposing to make a small addition for the vestibule and the elevator access, handicap access into the building itself. We're modifying the back, creating some green space, putting some handicap parking spaces back there. We're putting this turnaround in this area for drop-off zone, fire emergency, no parking area. We're eliminating the entrance currently to the building off from South Main Street, so there'll be no entrance off from the Main Street side, South Main Street. We are putting a new entrance on the northerly end of the building, out into the parking lot, plus this main access point into the building.
Steve, I'm sorry. So you just said you're gonna have an entrance off Union Avenue into it?
Well,
You said the
not
north?
off Union Avenue, it's be the face of the building facing Union Avenue. There's gonna be another entrance that gets out to the parking area that's out there.
So where's the exit?
Currently, there's an entrance here.
The exit.
Hmm?
That's an entrance. Will they be able to exit that
Oh,
way too?
Entrance and exit.
Okay, that's.
Yes,
that's what I wanted.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We're removing the one that comes right off from the sidewalk, right off from South Main Street. So you'll drive into the site, your parking is here and back in here, and the main access to the building will be from this rear area where we want to put the vestibule, which is this picture you're looking at right here, making it handicap accessible. There is a slight increase in green space. When you combine the green space we're creating on both properties. It still meets the green space requirement for the lot itself, but the overall would be an increase in green space. Of course, we are proposing a new facade on the building, as you can see from the pictures that are there. I think we submitted a picture of the building as it looks today. And the building itself will be modified and brought up to all current life safety codes, including fire suppression systems. We did have to go to the ZBA. We got a variance for the density. The use is allowed in the zone. The density wouldn't allow us to put the units we needed to put in there based on the size of the building. So we went to the ZBA on December 18th. They gave us our variance for the density that we're requesting tonight. With the variance, this project meets all of your site planning and zoning requirements for the city. In addition to requesting site plan approval from this board, we are also requesting a waiver for a reduction in 80% of the impact fee on this project because it's an infill rehab reuse of an existing building or facility. And I filed that waiver with my application as required. With that, I will turn it back to the chair. I'd be happy to answer any questions I can answer. We have gone through, obviously, all the filings and the TRC. We're making improvements in the sewer and water connections out there, working with Public Works. And on the staff review, I think we have made all but maybe one adjustment already on the site plans, but we take no exception to the staff review and the recommendations on revisions to the plan and that stuff. With that, I'll turn it over to the chair.
All right.
Happy to answer any questions.
Well, it is 9:10. I'm going to open it up to public hearing. If anybody's interested. I see nobody interested. It is 9:10. I'm going to close public hearing and look for staff review.
So as Steve indicated, this project has been to our TRC review. He's coordinated with all the departments. We have just a couple of plan revisions that are noted. Steve's really good about changing those plans, so they probably have been addressed. We'll just double check when he gives us the final plans. They're just related to the utility upgrades, and a note that the fire department will probably do additional review when the building permit comes in. That's when Charlie usually does a lot of his life safety review. We absolutely support the waiver request for the reduction of impact fees. This project is an example of exactly what was intended as part of that infill rehab and reuse criteria in the zoning ordinance.
My understanding is, Steve, that you have taken into notice about the DPWs and the water department in regards to the size of the...
Yes. We actually, we're making improvements on the water connection. We're also increasing the service line for the sewer. They had some problems with that.
Okay.
They weren't quite sure whether the problems were related to the 6-inch or the 4-inch line that comes out of the building, or was the line itself. So we went back and did an analysis and a study of the sewer collection system out there and provided supporting information that the sewer line in the street was suitable and sized right for the connection.
Okay, great.
So we worked that out with the Public Works Department, we met with the Water Department. The only thing that has to be done, which would take place in the building design plans, is where the meters go inside the building and how they get set up.
Steve, what about the gas input to the building? Is that gonna increase the size of the gas mains?
It could possibly, there is a gas main in there now, and that would be determined in the building inspection and review from the building code. Mechanical company would have.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
Randy, why do we recommend the reduction of the impact fees? You know,
So we have, were you at the last meeting?
yes.
Okay, do you remember we talked about the impact fees at the restaurant that was converting to the multifamily?
Yes.
And we talked about reducing them, but it wasn't permitted in that zone. This is actually permitted in this zone. And the zoning ordinance allows for the planning board to grant a waiver of that reduction when the project meets the definition of infill rehab and or reuse. And things that happen in the downtown generally meet that criteria. This one absolutely does, because they're rehabbing and reusing an existing building pretty much in our downtown core. So we fully support that waiver. Did I answer that?
We agree?
It hasn't got one yet, I don't think. I don't know. Did you get a lighting plan from?
I think, was there a
What's the
condition that
No,
we?
we're not proposing any new site lighting. The site lighting is there. There was gonna be some lighting off the building, and agreed that it would be reviewed under your code with the building permit.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, and it's probably for this gentleman over here. I've been asked by some residents, is this property as it exists now is on the tax rolls. Will it stay on the tax rolls?
Yes, it will.
Okay. That's great to hear. I mean, there's been back and forth I've heard from people on that, so.
No, it's a misconception. There's no intention to request any waiver of taxes or the like.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody? Bueller? All right. So at this point, I'd request that the board determine if they'd like to take action here.
I believe we have to do 2 votes, one for the impact fee, whether to approve that or not.
Okay, yep.
So would you like to do that one first?
Sure.
I would like to approve the impact fee reduction for this building in accordance to the regulations of the city.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of reducing the impact fees, raise your hand, please. Those opposed? Looks like that motion has passed. And a second motion? Yep, go ahead.
I'd like to approve application PL 2017-0109 SP at 423 South Main Street. With the project completion deadlines, staff recommendations, number 1, A through D. Number 2, plan revisions, A through D. Number 3, conditions that must be met prior to final approval or recording of the Mylar, A through D. Number 4, conditions to be completed prior to the start of site work, A. Number 5, conditions applicable during and after constructions, A through E. And number 6, as-built plans.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor of approving this, please raise your hand. Those opposed? That motion has passed. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Now we're gonna go, any application acceptance is needed? No. So, any new business?
Yes. So this is a two-part handout. There's a single sheet and then a multi-sheet package, so take one of each if you could. And just, I'll give you some more. I think that might be enough.
Take one and pass them all.
This is for you. How many more you need? Two more? Two more?
No, there's,
Two.
no.
Two more.
You have two, so you need two more.
Two more sets.
Two more.
Two more sets.
Okay, there you go.
Please.
Here, take one. Yep.
All right, so as you know, city has been working on the
What's yours?
master plan update for some time. I'm not going to completely read the cover memo here, but I'm going to skim through it here for you. The Master Plan Steering Committee met several times during the course of the summer and fall, and came up with a number of concepts that they would like to see incorporated into the land use chapter, and they've also formulated an accompanying vision statement. Those are the two things that are required by state law that we update periodically. Myself and Mike Izard from the Lakes Region Planning Association took those concepts and wrote up the accompanying documents. The land use chapter, as presented tonight to you, in particular, is a drastic departure from the previous one. It is very short compared to most, and it is intended to be to the point with a limited number of specific suggestions that can be implemented and achieved. The overarching theme of the discussions of the steering committee and this document is to foster significant changes in Laconia's zoning ordinances and planning policies, and to purposefully change the direction of the city's future development and to make it clear the city is open for business. The proposed vision statement and land use chapter will be posted on the city's website tomorrow. The planning department will receive comments on the documents on behalf of the board. We'll make sure we share those with you when we get them. The board should recommend the documents be referred to a public hearing. I was suggesting February 6th. Councilor Bounds would like to see that be the March 6th meeting, and that's okay. That's your board's decision. And then the planning board would adopt it probably adopt it at the following meeting after you have your public hearing. And there will be some time between the public hearing and the adoption meeting to incorporate any desired updates to the drafts or any comments that we may get, and people decide, yeah, that's a good idea. I would also advise the board to schedule a workshop session sometime between now and adoption to review and discuss the document in a less formal setting than we could in a regular meeting. And I just want to briefly go over some of the key points of the land use chapter. I would encourage you to take this home and read it. Key points are the population of Laconia has been stagnant for decades but has progressively aged. The community needs to find a way to entice younger and middle-aged families and individuals to live and work in the city, and this in turn should help to revitalize the business community in the city, particularly the downtown and Weirs areas, and other existing commercial districts. Housing stock of Laconia has expanded appreciably in the past 15 years or so, but much of that increase has been in the form of seasonal units, many priced beyond the means of the average resident, or in low-income housing. The measures proposed in the land use chapter and subsequent planned updates that will be coming your way for zoning, site plan, and subdivision regulations are intended to spur the availability of mid-range priced homes. The former state school property and the surrounding properties represent a unique opportunity, but they are not zoned correctly for any reasonably expected development. Working with the State Commission and other landowners, the changes needed to drive investment will be coordinated with all affected parties. Laconia proposes a pro-population growth land use strategy with a focus on mid-market residential housing and a balance of mix of commercial and industrial development. And I will tell you that a pro-population growth land use strategy is rather unique for communities, so that this will be a differentiating factor for the city of Laconia. Most communities are trying not to grow. The high-level features of the recommendations in the land use chapter include several key concepts. The first is patience, as it takes years for the results of these proposed changes to be evident. We're also looking at performance zoning that should be implemented in several areas of the city, perhaps most areas. The city needs to have a serious discussion about parking solutions, particularly in the greater downtown area, including what to do about the parking garage. Where possible, the city should enter into partnerships of various means with landowners considering improving their property. The expansion of municipal water and sewer systems into areas now not served is part of the necessary plan. With this infrastructure in place, mixed-use developments can be created, specifically in the Parade and Hilliard Road areas. Consolidation of zones, particularly in the greater downtown area, but also elsewhere in the city, can lead to less cumbersome regulations and restrictions, and this is part of the open for business message that is desired to be conveyed. This can be combined with the flexibility that mixed-use zoning or performance zoning offers to drive the desired results. And if you're not familiar with the concept of performance zoning, we can get into that at a later date. That's the land use chapter itself does explain it a little bit, but we can get into that. We need to effectively use various tax incentives, such as those enabled under RSA 79E, RSA 7280-83, and others, and also continued prudent use of TIF districts. With the expected adoption of the documents, they will begin a complete overhaul of the zoning ordinance, site plan regulations, and subdivision rules. The goal is to reduce unnecessary restrictions and to simplify requirements whenever possible. One of the major discussions that we had in the steering committee level was when we do adopt this master plan chapter, that's going to kick off the activity of a massive rewrite of the zoning ordinance. This is not going in and tweaking a few words and changing a couple of dimensions and those kinds of things. This is going to be a very significant overhaul of the zoning ordinance, also the site plan regulations and the subdivision rules. The zoning ordinance proposals will come to the planning board first. You'll have public hearings on them, and you will vote to approve or approve to recommend to the city council or not to approve, and then they will go on to the city council for a vote. They will usually have another public hearing and vote on zoning changes. Site plan regulations and subdivision rules are strictly within the purview of the planning board. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you foresee a lot of this stuff happening, like coming before us?
I would, I mean, we have, staff collectively has started, at least in our minds, we have various lists of things that we want to accomplish, so we're going to be starting shortly, but in earnest after the public hearing is scheduled, so that we hear what the community has to say. It will take some time to do that. If we wait until March to do the public hearing, I would anticipate you would probably not see anything until the end of summer at the earliest. Wow. And that might be a little optimistic, but that would be the earliest I think you would see it. My goal is to try to get the zoning site plan regulations and subdivision rules updated by the end of the year. So you're gonna have a busy year coming up, because in addition to all the applications you're gonna get that you normally have, we'll be dealing with presentations by staff concerning the three elements that we have discussed. I have been told, and this may be not a fair statement, but I have been told that this board is adverse to having additional meetings, and I completely understand that. However,
Nobody's asked me that, but
given-
I would
given-
go along with that.
given the circumstances that we're in, and it's not gonna happen the next couple of months, other than, I really believe you should have a workshop session at some point in time in February or March to have an informal discussion about all this. And then when we get going on changing zoning and changing site plan and subdivision regulations, instead of me coming in with, a 100-page document and say, okay, here's the zoning regulations, let's go. I would rather do it piecemeal and have discussions with you as we're going along and writing up the revisions, and then when you basically see it, you've seen it before, for the most part. And so I'd rather do it that way.
Should I do with all of us together?
Yeah. It should be done publicly, and absolutely should. I mean, a workshop is not, a workshop is still an official meeting, follows all the rules. It's just you cannot make any decisions in a workshop. You can't take a vote. You can take a consensus, you can, do a straw vote or anything, but you can't take any official votes that are binding. But other than that, but it's a real meeting, and it'll be televised and all that stuff.
Well, to get us all together, because we know when these meetings are, so we can plan ahead.
Right.
So I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are, but I'm gonna give you personally, not right now, but I will give you the dates I'm available, or not available, let's say.
Okay.
And maybe everybody else can do that, and then.
That would be great.
Just kind of piecemeal together some sort of meeting.
Sure, and it may be that, we pick a couple of dates that, 8 out of 9 can be here, or that's the way it works out, that's the way it works out, but hopefully we won't have any more recording problems, so the meeting would be available to review after.
One quick question, Dean,
Sure.
on the line item number 2, Hilliard Road Extension. Is that going to be taking land out of domain from people to extend that road?
Hilliard Road already exists.
It's a dirt road.
Yes,
Right.
so it already exists as a class.
Part of it is a Class 6 road, which means the city is not maintaining it, but the right-of-way exists.
Yeah. Right.
It is a public right-of-way.
For snowmobiles.
Yeah, well, at this time of year, and maybe swamp buggies the rest of the year, but, no, and it's this is not something that's going to happen overnight, and obviously there are a number of discussions that need to occur with the present landowners and city council, and there's infrastructure improvements that need to be made. I think the more immediate area would be the Parade Road area from the Elm Street intersection going north, and perhaps along Meredith Center, Meredith Parade Road, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Parade Road going north, and, Meredith Center goes the other way.
Meredith Center Road. The first 1,000 to 2,000 feet going from that intersection is the primary immediate focus. As you get further out into the future, you're going further out from there.
Why'd you ask about Hilliard Road?
Well, because I don't know if he's a developer or something, but someone bought that farm on the hill that abuts to that road.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's plans for a big development going in there.
Not that we know of.
And it wouldn't matter anyway, that's a road there. It's not being used now, but.
No, but I'm
Right,
just
it could
saying,
be.
if he developed that, he may pay for that part of the road.
Oh,
Could very well. Yep, that would be great.
Because there's great views of Paugus Bay on that hill.
Yep.
That's 27 acres of land.
I didn't, so it's not the farmer was there, it's somebody's bought it. They're not gonna have you're talking about the.
Right next to pedal pushers.
Okay, it's next to that.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Somebody
So
bought that.
I like Charlie's idea of if everyone could share some dates that they're not available, and we'll try to piece together what works best for the most, and try to get that scheduled for you. That concludes my presentation on the master plan.
Thank you very much. We'll move us right along to old business. None.
Yes, I have old business.
Do you? Go
I
ahead.
would just like to make a statement. We talked about that place that was torn down on Union Avenue. We gave, you know,
Which one?
what was it?
Across from Irving?
No.
Next
well,
door
down-
to the Napa store.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Remember we were talking about when that was built? So it was built in 1950. That's what they had. They had a story in the paper about that. And I was-
Did it look like that in 1950?
Yes, well, because there was a restaurant there. It was a hamburger joint. Remember I mentioned about the sign there? The guy, when McDonald's moved into town, the guy put the sign up that he wished old McDonald had stayed on his farm. So, but I think it was Warren Clements, or not
See how much
Clements,
you missed last month?
Warren Hughes had a thing in the paper about that. It was built in 1950. Because I think somebody here thought it was built later than that.
Yeah, like 70s, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. No, it was 1950.
Well, in our file, it looked like there was a site plan for late 70s. There was a site plan approval. So, is there a picture in the newspaper? It was the same building?
Maybe they added
It
the
could have been
silo.
demolished and redeveloped.
The silo was
Yeah.
part of the motif of the restaurant.
Oh, that was the original building that had the silo?
Yeah, so I think they may have done something next to it or something like that, but I just wanted to throw that out there because it was bugging me after that meeting when I knew that was there when I was in high school, and it was just
That was like
1894.
60.
I wish listen, trust me, I.
That was a
definitely no
century
longer
ago.
life. I wish I was back then, but, in any event, I just wanted to throw that out, point of interest.
Yeah. Nice. Any reports?
Just a quick on the Lakes Region Planning Commission. As you know, a couple of months ago, Brandy and I were appointed to be commissioners. We have 3 seats on the board. We had one person who's been serving for quite a while. We were always looking for people to fill the other 2 seats, and we couldn't find anyone. So Brandy and I decided, after checking with the commission, whether we could do that or not. We have been appointed as commissioners. And since then, it has come, Department of Public Works would like to serve on the commission, have someone serve on the commission. And so if that is agreeable to the board, one of us will, we don't know what the mechanism is yet, or whether we need to be unappointed or resign, or I don't know what the mechanism is, but whatever the mechanism is that we need to do, one of us will step down and allow a DPW person to be.
We need a vote on that?
No, it just is, I mean, as long as nobody has any objections or anything.
Who is the DPW person that they recommend?
I think it's
I
gonna.
don't know if it'll be Wes or Krista.
Yeah, I don't.
know.
No, I'm sorry, from that
okay.
that level of detail, I'm not aware.
I didn't know if it was gonna be Wes or it was gonna be.
It might, it might be
the
Wes or
assistant.
Krista or one of the superintendents, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Would that influence any decision in the contrary? I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that either.
Yeah, I don't know that there is any objection, so.
Okay.
Whatever
All right.
works for you.
All right, we'll figure out what we need to do and get it done.
So no conservation. Should we wait for David Bounds to come back for city
No.
council? Are you sure?
No.
All right. Then, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? 9:34, we've adjourned.
There you go.
Perfect. That was perfect.
Minutes early, but not bad, Colleen.